Testing microphone for the YouTube stream. Testing the microphone for the YouTube stream.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is January 18, 2023. Welcome to the City of Toronto Committee of Adjustment, Scarborough District. And we are going to begin our afternoon session for our CFA hearing today. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx webinar, an online digital platform, and it is streamed onto the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using the WebEx webinar, which is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch it on the YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to a panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5 minutes allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use their share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Before we begin, we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to a property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and an email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, the TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision of the TLAB to the TLAB, and in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal or the OLT. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal the CFA decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons in public bodies that are listed or defined in the Planning Act are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order as it's listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or the applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or the agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching your 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters that are outlined in the application. The applicant or the agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposal at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if it is substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those who are entitled to receive the notice of application are informed of the changes. Then individuals speaking in support or in opposition to the application will be invited to speak. Committee of Adjustment may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. I request that you confine your remarks to the application. Repeating the same comments again will not advance your cause. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or the agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will then be taken into committee for a decision. For the afternoon sessions and for items listed under, from item 21 to 31, are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff? So, Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I would like to declare a conflict of interest, and this is item number 26 for 57 Colonial Avenue. The applicant is an acquaintance of mine, and I would request Member Said to chair the item for me when it is up for discussion in my absence. Thank you. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, do we have any requests for deferral for the afternoon items?
Through the chair, there are two deferral requests. The first one is for item number 22, 8 Cameron Watson Crescent. Deferral to the February 16th, 2023 hearing due to insufficient notice given under the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Can we please have the applicant, Miro Simicek? He's not there. And Robert Capobianco is not there. All right. So staff, we have the request that you expressed on behalf of them. Members of the committee, do you have any concerns with the request for deferral? I see none. Okay. So if there are no questions or comments, can I please have a motion for the request for deferral for 8 Cameron Western Crescent? And this would be deferred until February 16th. Member Said, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I put forward motion for deferral of item number 22 to February 16, 2023 hearing, and this deferral is due to insufficient notice given under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Member Said. May I have a seconder? Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I second that motion to defer to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and the application has been deferred to February 16, 2023 for 8 Cameron Watson Crescent. Thank you. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, what is the second request for deferral, please?
Through the chair, the last deferral request for the afternoon session is for item number 30, 14 ACLAND Crescent. Deferral to the February 16th, 2023 hearing due to insufficient notice given under the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you. Can we please have the applicant, Jonathan Baskowski? Okay, Jonathan's not there. Is Mayu Bella Subramanian there? Okay. I guess we can proceed with the request for deferral.
Through the chair, the applicant is aware of the deferral request.
Perfect. All right. Members of the committee, do we have any questions or comments on this request for deferral? I do know there's a list of registered speakers for this application. So to all of those who are listening, we are looking at or considering the request for deferral of this application, and this is because there was insufficient notice given under the Planning Act. Members of the committee. Motion, please, if there's no comment. Member Said, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I put forward motion for deferral of item number 30 until our next meeting. It will be considered in our next meeting, February 16. The deferral is because of insufficient notice given under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Member Said. May I have a seconder? Member McKay, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, yes. Pleased to second that motion to defer this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member McKay. So the application has been deferred to February 16, 2023. Are there any further requests, Colin? I believe none.
Through the chair, there are none.
Okay, all right. So I will start the vetting of the agenda for the afternoon session, starting with item number 21. For item 21, this is 11 MARILYN Avenue. I note that there are two registered speakers to speak with us on this application, so we will hold down item 21. This is 11 MARILYN Avenue. Item 23, we have 106 Surrey Avenue. Item 23, 106 Surrey Avenue. We have one registered speaker to speak on this application, so this application is being held. Item 23 is being held. Item 24, 216 FAIRGLEN Avenue. There are no registered speakers. Are there any members of the committee, any thoughts on holding down this item? I believe Member Macaulay, you had a question on this application that you wanted to see clarification from the applicant.
Just gotta get there. Give me a second, please.
Sure, no problem.
Oh, yes, I didn't understand this application. And I think that we need to make some changes to it. This is the one where there's 3 proposed dwelling units
That is correct.
as
Okay.
part of the application.
Okay, thank you, Member Macaulay, for that. So, Member Macaulay and other
We
members.
should hold it.
We will hold this item because members have some questions on this application. So 216 Fairglen Avenue is being held for clarification and discussion. Item 25 is 52 Harding Boulevard, and there are no speakers. Can I please have Shahid Nanawati, please?
Telling me that she spoke to someone at your office, maybe with you, and that committee of adjustments point you brought up, was that the thing?
Shahid, are you speaking with us or somebody
Okay,
else?
Okay.
Huh?
Right. Okay.
Shahid, you're online at the committee of adjustment hearing.
No worries.
Okay. Can you, hello? Shahid, can you hear
Right.
us?
Right. I think that has been missed out on the application.
Okay.
Could you please add that?
Let's mute him. Let's mute him and I will come back to it, okay? Just to. Item 26 is the application that I have a conflict on, but I note that there are registered speakers on this application, so this application will be held for further discussion. And once that happens, I will step away and let Mr. Said deal with it. So item 26 held for discussion. Item 27 is 15 DOERR Road. And there are no speakers here. Can we have Amritpal Singh Bansal? Hello, Amritpal, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. So we're vetting the agenda and there are no registered speakers. So are there any comments at this time?
No comments from us.
Okay, and there's a condition recommended by Urban Forestry. Have you read it and do you have any questions or concerns with that?
No, we do not.
Okay, perfect. Members of the committee, applicant for 15 DOERR Road, any questions or comments on this application at this time? If there are none, can I please have a motion? Item 27, this is 15 DOERR Road. Motion, please. Member Igor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll put forward a motion for approval subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Thank you, Member Igor. May I have a seconder, please? Member Said, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I second the motion.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion carries unanimously and the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 28 is 83 Wayne Avenue. There are no registered speakers. Can I please have the applicant, Chris Zianis? Hello, Chris, are you with us? Chris Zianis, 83 Wayne Avenue, are you with us? Hi, we're vetting the agenda. Do you have any comment at this time?
I do not.
Perfect, okay. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Chris Zianis? Okay, if there are no questions or comments or matter to be held, then can I please have a motion? 83 Wayne Avenue. Member McKay, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, I see that there's just one variance in front of us, really just a further meter on the height. So I'm going to move approval of this, and I do not see any urban forestry conditions. So I would move approval without condition.
Okay, thank you, Member McKay, for that. May I have a seconder, please? Member Igor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I second this motion for approval.
Thank you. And all in favor? The motion's carried and the application has been approved unanimously. So 83 Wayne Avenue has been approved and there are no conditions. Item 29 is 525 Markham Road. And although there are no registered neighbors or members of public, my apologies, there's one. Okay, we are going to hold down this item and we had some questions as well. So 525 Markham Road, item 29 is being held for further discussion. Item 30 was deferred and item 31 for 88 North Bloomington Avenue. There are registered speakers on this one, so this will be held as well. So I will go through the list and confirm which ones have been held for the afternoon session. So item 21, item 23, 24, 25, 26, 29, 31. Perfect. Do you want me to vet the one that where the applicant was?
It's up to the chair.
Okay, so let's deal with item 25, although I completed the vetting of the agenda, but I want to go back to applicant because there are no registered speakers, so might as well clean that up. So item 25 for Shahid Nanavati, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. Very sorry.
That's okay. All right. So we're coming back. We completed the vetting, but you were unavailable at the time. So we have your application for 52 Harding Boulevard. And do you have any comments at this time or any question? There are no registered speakers. And so is there anything you would like to say at this time?
No, I have given my presentation over there.
Yep.
And maybe that help. And yeah, I would request if at all there's any question coming from your end, I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. Okay. So members of the committee now, there are no conditions from what I could tell for this application from any department or agency. Any questions or comments for the applicant? This is 52 Harding Boulevard. Member Said, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could the applicant elaborate on the number of stories? I'm talking about variance number 4, which states that 2 stories are permitted, whereas the proposed number of stories are 4.
Right. So the thing is that this is a very technical matter right now because the level of the basement being a little higher than the ceiling level from the egress level, from the ET level, that is the established grade. So that, as per the code, throws our basement as non-existent over there. So technically, our basement is not there. But if at all, I just put 1 foot of underpinning in that basement, it automatically becomes a basement by the code. However, the basement itself is a habitable basement because of the height as per the code. So it's just a technical matter. If at all, the client spends a lot of money in doing that underpinning, it becomes a basement actually. So it's a technical matter.
So how many stories are there? If it is
So
not
that
four,
would make it two.
but you are saying these are three-story, this is a three-story building?
Yes, so it's a 2-story plus attic actually. So it becomes a 3-story automatically. It's not a 4-story.
And from the street view, it looked like a three-story building, right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So those two stories, one in the basement and the attic, technically are defined as stories and hence it's adding. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so any follow-up on that? Remember, we're vetting the agenda, so if you want to hold or discuss this more, I can hold it, but remember, Gary, please go ahead.
Just very quickly to the applicant, should we amend the variance 4 then? We're saying the proposed number of stories is 4. Should we change that back to 3?
Technically, it is 4 as per because there's no basement. That's what it says. Because if you look at the section, the established grade is a little higher than the basement ceiling. So it's just primarily making it a non-basement, but in every respect, it's a basement.
Okay, all right.
So staff is pulling
Nothing
up the
further.
cross-section. Staff is pulling up the
Mm-hmm.
cross-section, so you can see that this one right there.
Yes.
So attic is being defined as a story, and it's only for the portion that is sort of at the rear of the building. And by definition, the
thank you.
basement starts to become a story as well, and that's adding to story number 3 and story number 4 of the building. But if you look at it from the street, it's 2 stories. It's
Yes,
only,
ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
okay.
Good,
I think
good.
if you go to the front elevation, go down, Eric. One more. Yeah, right there. This is how it's going to look like from the street. But because of the grade and the
Yes.
established grade and the technicality where it's defined as a story, and so those two, the third story component or the fourth story would be seen at the back only, not at the front.
Right.
Okay? Any follow-up or should we proceed? I'm vetting the agenda.
Please go ahead, ma'am. I'm absolutely okay. Thank you for that explanation as well.
Okay, all right. Committee members, if there are no further comments, can I please have a motion? All right, Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As per the explanation by the applicant, and I'm also looking at the street view, this height is going to be very competitive with the buildings on the other side, which also look like a 3-story building from the street view. So with that, I move the motion for approval of this application, and I don't see there are any conditions for this approval.
Thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Member Igor, please go ahead.
I second the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and the application is approved. Thank you. It was unanimous.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Okay, so we have dealt with item 25. Okay. So starting with the first item that was held is item number 21, 11 Maryland Avenue. Can we please have the applicant online with us? And that would be Ji Wang. Okay, hello, are you?
Stephanie?
Yes, we can hear you. So Ji, we have
Thank
your
you, Madam Chair.
application before us. How would you like to proceed? Do you want to make a presentation or do you want to go right to questions?
I can make a presentation. I have a presentation material.
Okay. Do you want to present?
Yep.
Okay. So does staff have that material available? Supporting materials?
Right.
So we'll pull up the presentation and you can begin, please. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. To introduce myself to the Scarborough community of adjust. Community of Adjustment hearing. My name is Z1, the architect from Unique House, Inc., on behalf of the owner at 11 MARILYN Avenue. We are requesting the Committee of Adjustment to authorize a minor variance to permit the construction of a two-story detached dwelling on the subject property, proposing the 3 variances. So the first one will be building height, second one, the wall height, and the last one is the building depth. So if you look at the first page, I did some research on the MARILYN Street. Most of the properties are low-rise bungalow, and the properties are very large. And there are currently 3 houses being constructed during recent years, number 3B, number 7, and then number 15. So 3 of them looks very large, long, and a traditional look. So if you go to the next page. So the building depth, so once the minor variance is the building depth, the allowable is 19 meters. We are proposing 24.1 meters. So the building depth is measured from the requirement of front yard to the rear main wall. And please note, to keep the privacy, we propose the front yard 12.9 meters, which is further than the 9 meters requirement of front yard. It's the blue line, the dashed blue line, that is allowable 9 meters front yard. Our proposed building is at it's at the average of the 2 neighbors, number 9 and number 15. So this will increase the building depth. Secondly, only partial of the rear main wall exceeds the allowable building depth as marked in blue color, but half the remaining wall is within the 19 meters building depth. So I think this variance is very minimal and acceptable. If you look at the next page, for the 2 minor variances, one is related to building height, next one is a wall height. Because this property is at the intersection between Kennedy and Shepherd Avenue East, which is the center of the Scarborough aging court. The lot is very large. It's about 0.43 acres. To bring more density, the client planned to make the proposed basement livable in the future because they have, based on my understanding, they have many family members. That's why some of the members, they might live in the basement or work at the basement. Therefore, the ground floor elevation is raised up to allow more natural sunlight into the basement. This will end up that the building height and the wall height are more than the allowable. I drew the 2 green lines. The lower line is allowable 7 meters wall height, and the top one is a 9 meters allowable roof height. As you can see, this building is a more traditional look with gable roof. I don't want to sacrifice the beauty of the roof. That's why the roof is about 1.14 meters and 1.86 meters higher than allowable roof height. And for the wall height, it's about it's about 0.64 meters higher than the allowable wall height. So, it's my presentation. We believe, these new traditional homes will bring more value to this neighborhood. Any questions?
Sure. Thank you very much, Z, for that presentation. Going to the committee members to see if they have any questions. Committee members. Any comments or questions of Z? Any clarification needed? Okay. I don't see any for now, but if there's any, I'm sure we'll come back to it after we hear our residents. So thank you, Z. So just hang in there. We are going to speak with our the neighbors who have registered to speak with us, and then we'll come back to you for responses. So going to our first neighbor who has registered, Raymond Shear. Raymond. Hello, Raymond, are you with us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Raymond.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee. for having me in the participation and to speak my concern. I'm the residence at 15 Maryland Avenue, which is right next door to the applicants to the east. And I'm a happy father of 3 living in this blessed community. And I was very delighted to learn that there are going to be a new development right next door. And I welcome all the development to keep my beloved community modern and current. The only concern I have is about the building height, which is proposed at 10.86, which I believe translates to about 21% over the permitted limit. And I'm concerned that will create a spike to disturb to the street view of this community. And other than that, I'm happy to learn that there's going to be a development right next door. And I wish the new development all the success and the smooth construction. And I welcome them to my community. I will sit back and listen to your deliberation and wait for your decision. And I really appreciate the committee's time and your effort in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raymond. Thank you for your kind words. It's good to hear that you do welcome development in the neighborhood. And we certainly note that you have concern with the proposed height of the building. And that's exactly the purpose of this meeting, is to hear from the residents what their concerns are. So once we go back to Ji Wang, we would request him to respond to your concern and what clarification that he would provide in response to your concern. So thank you very much for that. I will now go to our other neighbor, Tommy Liu. Tommy, are you with us? No, okay. So staff tells me that Tommy has not signed in. So we will move on and we're going to go back to Ji Wang. So Ji, you heard the comments from Raymond. He has expressed some, although he welcomes the redevelopment, but he has some concerns with the proposed height. So how would you like to respond to it?
Hello, sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so if you look at my front elevation, the roof height, the difference, the number showing on the drawing, actually that's from the highest point. Because usually for the roof height on the top of the part, we have a minimum 2% slope, which is not seen. That is for the water drainage. By seeing the roof, half of the roof, if you look at the front porch, the roof above the front porch, that one is about 6.6 feet 1 inches from the allowable to the highest part. But from the highest part, most of the part is 2% slope, because we still need a distance. And also, if you look at this, the roof slope is 12 by 18, because we want the traditional house looks better. That's why the more roof, the better. But for the other 3 sides, the 2 sides and the rear yard, the slope of the roof is changed from 12 to 18 to 12 to 12, which is the angle is shallower to allow more natural view or sunlight. I do believe, if you look at the numbers, it does above the allowable 9 meters, but we try our best to change, to design the roof, make sure not all the roof is higher than that. Like a half of the roof, most of the roof is only about 3 feet 8 inches, which is 1.14 meters higher than the allowable. Only the front porch and the roof above the porch is 1.86 meters.
Okay.
And also, yeah, sorry, I finished.
Okay, all right. So essentially, okay, I heard you. Okay. Member Igor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick clarification for the applicant. Are you able to tell us what is I know you're talking about the differences in height. I'm just wondering if you can say what the highest point of the height is, and then like what is that over 9 meters, whatever that is, and then what is the lowest part, just so I can see the total between the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you look at the front elevation,
Yeah.
so if you so the next page, yeah. So the front, if you look at so the highest point is 1.86 meters from the highest one to the sorry, if you look at my presentation,
It's in the
the
presentation.
third page of the,
Yeah, we're pulling up your presentation materials. I think you've
so
shown it there.
next
Yeah.
next one. Yeah, this one. So the blue
perfect.
line, is the first blue line is the roof line, which the 9 meters allowable. So the highest point is 1.86 meters from the highest point, which is above the front porch. The left partial, which is lower, which is about 1.14 meters from the 9 meter allowable to the highest point.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Is that it? Okay. No follow-up question. Oh, Member Macaulay, and then Member Gary.
Yes, if the applicant can show us the height of this building adjacent to his neighbor. I can see that at the front of the building it is taller, but I think along the side lot lines, the building is lower.
Okay. Yes, if you look at the, I don't have the neighbor's building height.
It was,
but
well,
if you-
the address is 15 Maryland.
It's just, I wanted
Yeah.
to see the height adjacent to the neighbor, or the side height, because I think it's different from the front height.
Oh, you mean 13
Right.
Maryland?
13, I don't have the pictures. I think the
No.
13 Maryland is,
I don't think there's a 13.
sorry, 13.
There's no
only 9 or 15.
15. And so there's on your package on page 1, there's a photo of 15 Maryland.
Yeah,
And it was a gentleman who spoke, Raymond. It's right there.
right.
You don't have the height on that building, right?
No, I don't, but I think it's above 10 meters.
Okay. I'm not asking for that height, Madam Chair. I'm asking to see the side elevation of the proposed building.
Oh,
Okay.
I see.
The height of the side elevation. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. And is that the same height as the front elevation, or is it lower?
This is same.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I thought it was lower.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Member Gary, you had a question, and then we'll go to Member Said.
Yes, just to the applicant, in respect of that drawing on the street, is there a way that you could shrink or lower that portion of the roof over the entrance to achieve a uniform roof level throughout, and it would be a little lower in terms of any variance you would need? Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
So
So
I'm
if you,
just asking if you could shrink it, yeah.
yes, I can shrink.
So you can reduce the height for that portion?
For the front porch to be lower than is that you're asking lower the same with the rest of the roof height?
That is correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So for the entirety of it.
Yes, I can do that.
So how much would that be then? What would be the height then?
That will be 1.40 meters higher than the 9 meters, which is a 10.14 meters,
10.14?
10.14.
So on the notice, variance number 2, sorry, no, variance number 1. Variance number 1, proposed, so the permitted height is 9 meters and the proposed height is 10.14?
86. The proposed, originally is a 10.86 meters, the
That's
building
correct.
height.
That's correct. Okay. So you're prepared to reduce this for the entirety of the building to 10.14?
Actually, yeah, so because this is a traditional style, the higher the roof, the better, because of the proportion. So I'm thinking if there's any way you can make it a little higher, maybe 10.2 meters.
Yeah, you need to confirm the height with us so that you don't run into an issue down the road.
Okay, let's say 10.2 meters.
10.2?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Gary, as per your request, the applicant's willing to reduce the building height in its totality to 10.2.
That's good, Madam Chair, because in imperial terms, yeah, it might be 3 feet or something like that, so good.
Okay.
I'd be prepared to support the amended application if that meets with the approval of other panel members.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked. Any other questions or comments from members? I think Member Said you had a comment, right?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, that was a follow-up question from Member N when we were talking about the side elevation and the height of that. I was just wondering, like the front main wall is 7.64 meter high. So does it mean the side walls, they are not, there is no variance about that? I just wanted to have a further elaboration. What's the height of, is this the 100% height for all the walls, or there is a different height for that?
It's going to be the same height for the four elevations.
So not just the front main walls, for all the walls.
Yeah.
That could be a variance for all the walls, right? Side walls and front wall is mentioned there in variance number 2. Yes.
Right.
So just bear with us. I'm looking at, I'm seeking some clarification from staff here.
Mhm.
Six on the, yeah, on all sides. So that was a good catch, Member Said. It's shown as 7.6 on all sides, but the variance as noted is 7 meters on, for the front, sorry, 7.6 for the front main wall. Okay, so staff is getting some clarification. We'll just wait.
Mhm.
Through the chair, the zoning review that was completed only indicated the front main wall, requiring a variance. If the variances are required for the other walls, the rear and the sides, then these variances are not going to implement the proposal as current, based on these plans.
So was a zoning review completed or was there a waiver? on
There was a zoning review completed.
Because if the committee approves it the way it is, then it only allows for the front main wall, not for the side walls.
You may wish to clarify this with the applicant.
Yeah. So, so we have a question here to you, Z. The way
Yes.
the variance is worded, it only captures the front main walls to exceed the height. Not all, but if you look at the plans, if you look at the elevation drawings at least, I'm looking at 7.64 on all sides. So can you confirm if this will work or this would necessitate a change?
Because this design is same with the zoning review,
I
same
know.
drawing for the zoning review.
Yeah, we understand that. Yeah.
So, is there any options, so to proceed? Should I do the zoning review again, or should I just make some decisions today?
Through the chair, the applicant has two options. The first option is they can base it on the application which is currently in front of the committee, which is only the main front main wall. But that may, again, and then the applicant will need to revise to comply with that. Or option two is that the applicant can consider deferring this to confer with Toronto Buildings to confirm whether additional variances are required to the other main wall elevations.
Thank you. So if I change the other three sides wall height to be 7 meters, once the design is ready, should I send to zoning review again, or just send to the building permit, apply building permit directly, or should I apply the committee of adjustment again?
No, so let's say if the committee approves your application as is today, the way it's presented, it only allows for 7.64 for the front main wall. So then the committee will approve it and that's what you will have. So then you have two options. You would have to comply with the other three sides and bring it into conformity with the zoning bylaw, which is 7 meters. So that would be your only option at the time. Unless you want to increase it to 7.64, which means you'll have to come back to the committee. So are you prepared to revise your drawings, revise your elevations to bring it down to 7 meters for the other three sides? Or do you want to defer the application, go back to zoning, get the confirmation, and then come back to us?
I think I want to make it more easier. I can revise the three elevations to make sure the wall height on the other three sides to be 7 meters.
Okay, which is totally fine, and the committee can proceed with making a decision on the application today for the front main wall only then. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank
Perfect. So thank you very much, Member Said, for flagging that. That was a good catch. I'm glad we did. Otherwise, the applicant would have had some issues going forward. So if there's nothing else, then if there are no further comments or questions, can we proceed with the motion?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Okay. There are some conditions on the application.
Yes.
Or-
So thank you very much, staff. I got caught in the discussion. There is a recommended condition from Metrolinx. G, have you had a chance to look at that?
Yes, I did. I emailed one of the staff in Metrolink. So they want the owner to get registered for there's an easement
That is correct.
for that.
Yeah. So are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so applicant has acknowledged and confirmed that they do not have any concerns with the proposed recommendation or recommended condition from Metrolinx, so we can proceed with that. Okay, we take the matter into committee now. Committee members. Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the members don't have any comments, I can move the motion for approval of item number 21 as amended, subject to the Metrolinx conditions.
Thank you. And may I have a seconder, please? Member McGarry, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I second that motion to approve with that condition.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and the application has been approved subject to condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. We now go to item number 23. Item 23 is 106 Surrey Avenue. Can we please have the applicant? And the applicant is Ozren Stambuk.
Hi, this is Ozren Stambuk at 15 Moreland Road.
All right, thank you, Ozren, for joining us. Ozren, would you like to make a presentation or do you want to go straight to questions?
I would like to go straight to questions, so I'm not taking up your valuable time because repeating points you may already agree with, but I'm happy to answer any and all concerns you may have.
Thank you very much, Ozren. I think that's a great idea. So members of the committee, over to you. Questions, comments for Ozren. The application is to construct a second-story addition to an existing dwelling, and there are 5 variances before us that you can read off the public notice. Any questions? And while you're looking through it, I can confirm with Ozren, you have looked at the conditions from urban forestry, and do you have any questions on that?
No, I don't have any questions, and absolutely, I agree with those conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, so maybe committee members, you can take your time and we'll come back. We have a registered speaker who we can speak with, and then we'll come to your questions. So the first registered speaker is Lucy Murtos. Lucy, are you with us? Okay.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lucy, and you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead and tell us what your concerns are on this application.
Okay. Yes, my name is Lucy Mortos. I live at 38 Wexford Boulevard, and 106 Surrey Avenue is right at the corner of Wexford and Surrey. I have serious concerns with respect to variances number 3 and number 4. Variance number 3, the required minimum front yard setback is 7.57 meters. The proposed front yard setback is 3.56. Variance, number 3, if it's approved, reduces the front yard setback by 4 meters, which is 53%. Now, if I go to variance number 4, the minimum required rear yard setback is 7.5 meters. The proposed setback is 1.42, and that reduces the rear yard setback by 6 meters, which is 81%, which is huge. Now, I have done research on flooding studies conducted around the world, and they report that decades of mass urbanization, together with poor urban planning, have increased flooding hazards. The decrease of permeable surfaces, so that means lawn, green space, increases surface runoff and reduces infiltration, which is the absorption of water by the soil, and both of these contribute to flooding. The rise in intense rainfall events, lack of infiltrative green space, and inadequate drainage infrastructure lead to an increase in flooding, both basement and surface flooding. The last basement flooding assessment for our neighborhood, which falls into Area 30, was completed in 2011. I sent an inquiry to Toronto City Services on January 3 and again on January 9 to ask what, if any, upgrades were made to the sewer and stormwater infrastructure in our neighborhood since the original systems were installed. I have not received a reply. I am requesting that the committee reject these two variances or provide conditional approval only on the condition that the existing sewer pipes are replaced with larger pipes and the existing stormwater pipes are replaced with larger pipes. I am very concerned that the flooding will increase in our neighborhood due to the increase of monster homes being built everywhere. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. And I think this is one of them. This is one of those applications where I guess a presentation would have been handy to really explain what is going on here. And maybe I'm going to ask the applicant, Osrin, to explain and present. But just while I have Lucy,
But
I'm
I don't need an explanation. I can see from the diagram that basically you're reducing the front yard setback by 80%, the backyard by 50%. My main concern is we have increased flooding all over the city of Toronto, and I have not received any responses to my questions about the infrastructure in our
okay.
neighborhood.
So I can't
I
help you
don't
with
know if
that.
the pipes have been replaced.
I'm sorry, I can't
Well,
help
I
you with
think
the infrastructure questions, but I think it's important for you to understand that
yes,
those reductions in the front yard setbacks, and those are all existing. Nothing's being built on that. This application is only to add a second story, if I'm correct
no,
here, right?
no.
Okay.
They are building on, they are taking the space that is the reduced space and they are building on it. So the green area, all the lawn, etc., you're reducing the amount of area of land that is available to absorb water. They are building not only up, but they are building out, back, front of the house and the back of the house, unless I've read it wrong.
Okay, so this is why I said I think we need a little bit of an explanation from the applicant to confirm that, okay?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
All right, well,
Okay.
thank you so much. We've heard your concerns, and I'm sure Osrin will respond to those. So, Osrin, can we have you back, and can you please walk us through exactly what's happening on this property?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Absolutely, I can walk you through that. And it was actually my intention for the speaker to go ahead first, voice their concerns so that I can then address those concerns directly. And basically, it is actually quite precise what you said. We are not proposing an expansion of the existing footprint of the bungalow. So that is where the front yard setback is coming for, and this is because and this is great. We can keep it on the site plan. This is because on the site plan you can see a dashed line passing through the middle of the property. That is the line of the required front yard setback, and that line appears because of the adjacent property. So the building already is. We are adding a total of 10 centimeters to the existing front yard setback, and that is mostly due to cladding. So that has absolutely no effect on flooding issues and stormwater drainage. Now, for the second story that we're adding onto this house, we're actually not expanding the foundation because we're adding a overhang in the backyard that is going to be supported on pillars. So it will not reduce this. It will not reduce the space for potentially grass and those kind of things. And most importantly, we do not have a soft landscaping set a variance or anything of the sort here. And so that's really those two variances, which I completely understand, are concerning on paper. They are actually arising mostly because of the position of the existing bungalow and how it relates to the existing lot. Because, you know, taking that lot line at the back as the rear yard setback is not quite accurate because this is a corner lot. So the backyard is really to the right of the building and separating the two buildings on Surrey Avenue. So we are basically just extending that second floor to fit in all of the homeowners' wish lists in order to fit in everything that we need to, but also most importantly, not expanding the foundation of the existing building. So I think it does come down to misinterpretation of the plans, and it's really, as you can see, if you can scroll down to the 3D images I have provided at the end, that really is showing us the first story is exactly the same. It's just being clad in a new stone veneer, which is slightly reducing the existing setback. And just finally, to conclude very quickly, if staff can scroll up to the survey, the existing survey, it should be on the second page of the provided plans. So one down. Yes, so the existing survey there shows exactly the same shape of the existing house, and it shows number 108 Surrey, which is provoking that front yard setback variance, because when we apply for drawings, we have to respect the average front yard setback, which would be of two buildings to the left and to the right. But here in the case, we only have one to the right, and it is far behind our building. And that also actually greatly contributes to where we are taking the topography to measure the height. So that's one thing that's very important to note, is that actually the height is probably 30, 40 centimeters lower if we didn't have to take our topographic point at where, if you can scroll down to the site plan, we can see that we are taking a topographic point right to the right there where it says 98.36. That is where we have to take that, and the other line, 99.67, that is the average established grade. From that point, we have to measure the building height, which again is not accurate, and that is precisely why we are in front of you today, so that you can comment on these variances and understand them as minor. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was very helpful in understanding the technicalities and what exactly is the scope of the development. So I can confirm, yes, Member Macaulay, I will get to you in a bit. So we've seen that there's no expansion of the building at grade level, and there's a one-story addition at the top with a little bit of a overhang, which will be supported by columns on the side of the building, and there's the setbacks are all existing as it relates to the existing building on the property. Yes, Member Macaulay.
Thank you. Can I have the survey again, please?
Sure.
Okay.
There you go.
To the neighbor who just spoke,
Mm-hmm.
I understand your concern with water and drainage. I live in Scarborough and I have the same concern. In fact, I have a fit when I hear that we're going to get rain. So I can understand that that is a concern. On this property, though, the proposal is simply to build on the existing building. So he's going up on that existing building. He is not going out in front, either on Surrey or on Wexford Road. This application has a technicality that I find a little bit more difficult. And that technicality is that it is up to the applicant to determine which is his front lot line and what is his flankage lot line. Front being the street. In my explanation, I would say Wexford is the front, the shortest lot line, and Surrey is the longest lot line. then you would take the frontage and the setback from either Wexford or from Surrey. In this case, the applicant decided that Surrey was the front lot line and therefore he needed a variance for the setback. Had he decided that Wexford was his front lot line, the existing house meets the setback. And so he wouldn't need a setback for the front lot line, nor would he need a setback for the side lot line. But that isn't what we've got in front of us. The applicant had decided that he would like to determine that his front lot line was on Surrey. In that, I looked at this and thought, is this a big issue? If it was a big issue, yes, I would be very concerned. But in actual fact, what he's proposing to do is to build on the existing building. And so whether he considers it front lot line or flankage lot line, where he considers the rear yard, really doesn't matter in the overall scheme of things because he's building on top of the existing building and he's not expanding. I don't know if that helps. I had some concerns with this. The applicant has made his choices. And in terms of whether this is minor or major, because he's building on top of an existing building, I don't have a concern. I hope that helps a bit.
Thank you, Member Macaulay. No, that certainly helps. That was very well explained. And I'm hoping that the resident has perhaps a better understanding of the proposal now than earlier. On that note, is there any other comment or question? Okay, perfect. And Osren has confirmed that he is aware of the urban forestry condition and he's no concerns with that as well. So we can proceed with with taking the matter into committee and make a decision on the application. So over to you, members. Member Igor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll put forth a motion of approval subject to urban forestry conditions.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder? Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'm thinking of something here. Igor, if you would just give me a second.
No worries.
I guess my concern is that we're giving a front yard setback and a rear yard setback, which is other than the existing development. And therefore, at a later date, the applicant could come in with a setback of 3.56 meters on, I've got my Surreys and my Wexfords mixed up, but he can come, we're expanding his setbacks, his existing setbacks for the existing house were determined as a front yard and a flankage yard. By giving this approval, we are expanding it front yard and flankage yard.
Okay, so I'm not.
All we can do is we can give the approval, but I'd like to tie it to this drawing so that he isn't coming forward to a different front yard and a flankage yard. Because we're not saying that you can't build and only can build on the second floor. We're saying, whereas your existing building is set back 5.57 from Surrey, you're asking that it be set back 3.56.
So basically what you're saying is what they are taking as side yard and front yard setback today could be changed, could be changed, and then the setbacks would then apply to that corresponding setback at a later date. Is that what you're saying? So once you tie it, it basically establishes.
That's what I'm saying. I want to tie it so that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, so it establishes or puts on record that that's what the front yard is and what the side yard setback is. Okay, fair enough.
So, Madam Chair, should I change my motion to be tied to site plan?
Yes, please,
That would be helpful.
if you wish
Okay.
to.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. If members of the committee are fine with that, I will move a motion for approval with urban forestry conditions and tied to site plan.
Okay, may I have a seconder, please? And I think Member Macaulay, okay, go ahead.
I will second that motion.
Perfect, thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion carries and the application has been approved subject to conditions. All right. We go to item number 24, and item 24 is 216 FAIRGLEN Avenue. Can we please have the applicant, Samir Kamisa? Yes, and this was held by the committee for some
Madam Chair.
clarification. Yes, Samir.
Yep, just good afternoon. This is Samir. I am the owner and resident of 216 FAIRGLEN.
Okay, so Samir, we had some questions on this application, some clarifications. I'm going to request Member Macaulay to proceed and ask the questions. There was some sort of unclarity with respect to what the application was for. Go ahead, Member Macaulay.
Sure.
Okay. In the application is saying that you're asking for approval for 3 proposed dwelling units. And when I look at what you are showing on the drawings, I can only find 2 dwelling units, one in the basement and one on the ground floor.
So there is so this view here, you can see, so yeah, I'm not looking to make a 3rd unit, but I do want to understand what it would take to do. There is no changes being made to the structure of the house, external. So, but if you look at the next page, not that one, that one there, you can see on the right side at the bottom, there is a side entrance that's existing. And I was looking to make that a suite for my mom. And I wanted to understand what requirements there are to make it a like another unit.
So this is not the right platform to ask what you can do to make it a 3rd unit. We're only looking at what's before us. Your application is, if you read the public notice, and staff, if you don't mind, can you pull up the public notice? It says, the purpose of the application is for interior alterations to add a secondary suite to an existing dwelling. Okay? So we're reading it as 2 suites, plans show 2 suites. This is what the application is. But when you look at variance number 1, it says that a maximum of 2 dwelling units per lot on a registered plan, whereas there are 3 proposed dwelling units on the lot. So that's where the discrepancy is. Your plans show the purpose of the application is for a 2nd suite, but this variance is for the 3rd one. So if you want to know how to do it, and so that's a separate discussion, and you'll have to have with city staff on that. We're here looking at your application that's before us. So you need to tell us today whether you want to proceed with a 2nd suite only, or you're really looking at 3 units on this lot.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that, I was muted. Yeah, so what happened when we were doing the zoning review, there was 2 things. The main reason why I'm here is item number 2, which is in the zoning review, which is looking at a front facing, it's called a vertibule, which is basically saying the secondary suite has an entrance that's facing the front of the street.
Correct.
And based on zoning review. So I'm looking to get that as my main thing for today, as a variance, a minor variance, and get that reviewed with the committee. The other variances were included in the zoning review to understand what the requirements are and are not being put forward today to committee.
Okay.
That helps?
No, that doesn't
Then
help.
our notice is incorrect because our first notice is a request for 3 dwelling units. We would have to refuse that, or you
No.
can delete that.
Yeah, so I think,
Maybe you can.
yeah, rather than refusing, I think if the applicant can confirm that it's a single detached dwelling and they're asking for a second suite
It's not,
with,
it's a semi,
with a,
semi-detached, sorry.
sorry? It's a semi,
It's
okay.
not a detached home, it's a
Sorry, my
semi-detached.
apologies. It's a semi, and they're asking for 2 units in that semi-detached unit, one being the primary, second being the second suite. And for that, they need 2 variances, which is variance number 2 and variance number 3. Then we can discuss removal or withdrawal of variance number 1.
I think, Madam Chair, we're going to have to withdraw number 3 as well because of the size of the secondary suite is bigger than the primary suite.
But you don't have to
That's,
withdraw,
that's not the,
what's being
that's not the
requested.
case.
Oh,
Yeah.
So guys, so it's not, yeah, so the secondary suite is just the basement. Everything else above is considered the primary suite. The zoning review was looking at making 3 suites. So when they were looking at 3 suites, they're saying you're hitting 50%, which is what I wanted to understand. So I'm not bringing that forward here. I'm just asking to get a secondary suite, so 2 suites in total, 1 in the basement and 1 upstairs. And there is only 1 variance to be able to accomplish that, which is item number, I think, 4 or 5, which is the front-facing.
no, number 2. So just to make everyone's life easy here and to avoid any complication, all we need from you, Samir, is to confirm that you're withdrawing variance number 1 and 3.
I confirm that I'm withdrawing item variances number 1 and 3.
Okay. All right, so that makes it easy.
Yeah. Then all we're dealing with is whether the entrance to the basement unit should be fronting onto the street or it has to be from a side yard.
That is correct.
We've dealt with those a number of times.
Okay. So does the committee have further questions? The application has been amended by the applicant, and the applicant has chosen to withdraw variance 1 and number 3. We're only dealing with variance number 2. If there are no further comments or questions, are we ready with a motion or for a motion? Member Macaulay, go ahead.
Okay, I recommend approval of this application as varied by deletion of variance request number 1 and variance number 3, and approval of the variance number 2.
Okay, there are no conditions. May I have a seconder, please?
No conditions.
Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I second the motion.
Right, all in favor of this motion? The motion is carried unanimously and the application has been approved. Thank you, as amended. We now go to item number 26. Oh, and I have a conflict on this one, so I will step away and I will let Member Said to run with this item 26 for 57 Colonial Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, we are looking at item number 26, which is about 57 Colonial Avenue. We have registered speakers with us. First of all, we will speak to the applicant. Staff, may I ask you to bring the applicant online? Irfan Nadeem.
My name is Nadeem Irfan, and
Good
I'm the
afternoon,
architect.
Irfan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining the meeting. Irfan, you have the option. Would you like to make a short presentation or would you like to directly take the questions from the members?
I would like to make a small presentation. I wouldn't take more than 5 minutes.
Sure, you have the 5 minutes for that.
Yes. If we were to compare the zoning notice with the zoning public notice, we only have 3 variances. But I guess for the ease of the explanation, the Committee of Adjustment staff has combined one basically from variance 1 to 4, which is basically a 1 variance. So they have identified wall heights for east, west, north, south, and created like 4 variances. But if we compare it to the zoning notice, it's just 1 variance. The second variance is, so basically, front we have 7.92, rear we have 8.25, and on side 8.05. So if we were to look at the elevations, our eve height for the most part of the dwelling, more than 80% is compliance, in compliance, 6.74. But it's just because of the elevation features and clients' desires, the elevation require the minor variance for wall height. The second variance is for the FSI. We are asking 0.52 times the lot area, whereas the required is 0.5 up to 279, and we're asking 0.52, about 360. There are so many precedents in the area we have submitted for the committee members to review. There is no concern from the staff in terms of the FSI. Lot is very, very large. There is no variance for the front yard. There's no variance for the rear yard. As a matter of fact, the side yards are requirements are 0.9, and we have provided 1.5 to 1.75 meter setbacks, and there's no building length variance. So we have a lot that can support the additional FSI, and there's no concern from the staff side. We have 11 support letters from the neighbors. Out of that, 2 are immediate. One is the 55, which is on the side, and there is a 58 right across the street. So our client has written a letter to the committee to explain who they are. They're not a builder, they're homeowners. They have been living in this area for several years, and they choose to raise their family, continue to raise their family in this area. And they have canvassed door to door, and they were able to secure good support from the neighborhood. So I believe this application is very, very minor in nature and a good candidate for the approval. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Irfan, for this short presentation within the time limit. And yes, we have received the committee member have received the letters for support. We have looked into that. Yes, committee members, at this point of time, do you have, I see a member and you have raised your hand, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Nadine. I just wanted to have a quick clarification. The building height on all 4 sides is 8.25 meters versus 7 meters. Is that correct?
The building height is actually 9 meters. Is the wall height, if we were to refer to the front elevation, it is the wall height is 7.92, I believe, 7.92, and that's just that feature. But if we were to look at the eve height, it is 6.74. Now I would like to request the staff to turn into the side elevations. That variance which is requesting 8.05 is only the little bit part on the front, because the homeowner wanted to see a certain type of design, and that is where we have 8.05, but the rest of the 80% of the wall is 6.74, similar to the other side yard. And I just wanted to mention to the committee member that the requirement for the side yard setback is 0.9, but we have 1.5 to 1.74, depending on, because the property line is at an angle. So having to have like any impact on the side yard, it's very, very minimum. I wanted to go to the rear yard elevation, so just wanted to mention that 8.25 is again a very small portion of the wall. It's the gable, and referring to the rear yard, the again, the rear yard has a very, very large lot on the other side of the street. So there's the separation between the two houses is very big. So having to notice this, increase in the wall height is, I kind of say negligible. So I say that there's a very, very minimum impact on the adjacent lots.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Member Ant, for asking this question. Is there any other questions from other members of the committee before we go to the speakers? I see none. If you have further question, we'll come back to the speaker later on. So now we speak with our registered speakers. Paul. Good afternoon, Paul. Are you there?
Through the chair.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
My apologies. Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Hello, can
My
you hear me?
apologies.
Okay. Thank you very much. No worries. Paul, yes, we hear you. Please go ahead. If you have any concerns, question about this application, you have 5 minutes and we are here to hear you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my concerns. My name is Paul Devine. I live at 59 Colonial. I'm a neighbor that adjoins the property on the east side. I'd like to speak about a couple things: height, floor space, and urban forestry. Regarding the height, on the east side, that's the side which borders my property. The proposed height is actually 8 point. Oh, sorry, the rear wall is actually 8.25 meters, and that's 27 feet, and that's allowable is 22.96, so say 23. So that's 4 feet higher than allowable. The east wall, which borders my house, is 805 is allowable meters. That's 805 is proposed. That's 26.4 feet, and that is 3.5 feet higher than allowable. The representative for the homeowner spoke about the house behind being such a distance that the height poses no issue to them, but I'm directly adjoining them on the east side, and the height is definitely an issue to me. The other thing I would like to discuss is the increased size of the floor space. My bungalow is approximately 937 square feet. This is average for the bungalows on the street and the neighboring homes. The proposed variance increase for floor space is 872 square feet. That is 93% of the size of my entire house. And for that to be considered a minor variance, I would have to disagree with that. I mean, I can understand 50, maybe 100 square feet, 150, but 872, 93%, or 93% of the existing size of my home is quite large. Also, the speaker just said that he had letters of approval from neighbors. 55 Colonial, 58 Colonial. 55 Colonial is the house that borders him on the west side, and the owner of that house does not live there and hasn't lived there since he bought it. That is a rooming house. And 58 Colonial, the owner of that house moved out over a year ago, and that's a rooming house also. So for them to speak on the impact of the new construction on them, I don't really see how that is relevant. And also, urban forestry, I was looking at the application, and I'm just wondering if an application was received to damage or injure an existing tree. There's a large tree in the backyard with a large circumference, and based on the drawings, how far back they're going to be within 10 feet of that tree. So when they excavate for the foundation and the footings, they're definitely going to be destroying some of the roots. And the branches are large branches that right now overhang the house. So if they're to go up 30 feet in total, there's definitely going to be large branches that are going to have to be trimmed or removed in order to accommodate the new build. But I will say that looking at the drawings, the side that borders my house, I have to say that I'm happy with the neighbors that they didn't put windows at the back there, which would infringe more on our privacy. Oh yeah, and so there was one more thing about the height. When I was looking at the drawings, and it shows the east side. I'm trying to figure out total height of the inside of the building, but it shows the east side. Sorry, just give me a second here. Okay, so at the east side, if we look at the basement window, It says it's 9 feet 11 to the top of the basement window from the finished floor. So that's almost 10 feet. But if we follow those lines across to the right, just at the front of the house, it says ceiling height, and then it says finished ground floor. So if we follow that line back across to that basement window, the finished ground floor is at the top of the basement window, and the ceiling height is halfway through the basement window. So that is the floor joist is spanning across to support the first floor. Does that mean that basement window is, it appears the basement window is going to be above the ceiling? That part of the drawing doesn't make sense to me. So is the basement height 9 feet 11, or am I reading this wrong? And that's about it. Thank you for your time. And I appreciate your answers to my questions.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. And we noted your concerns about the height and the floor space, urban forestry concerns. We will definitely will try to find the answers from the speaker when he comes back. Member of the committee, do you have any questions from Paul at this point? I see none. We'll go to the second speaker, Dr. Amelia. Dr. Amelia, good afternoon.
I have a baby strapped to me, so you might hear her too. So good afternoon, committee members. Again, my name is Dr. Amelia King, and I live at 64 Colonial Avenue. That's across the street from the applicant. And I just want to say that my husband and I moved to our house 3 years ago for exactly the character and sort of living experience that the proposed variances at 57 Avenue, Colonial Avenue threaten to destroy. So we're setting roots here. We're raising our daughter here. We're growing our business here, and we plan to be here for the long term. So, you know, we really, really care about where we live and the quality of life in our neighborhood for ourselves and our neighbors. To be clear too, we are both, my husband and I, very supportive of development that really respects the existing characteristics of our neighborhood. But we oppose overdevelopment that removes the healthy tree canopy, you know, reduces privacy, and doesn't respect the built form of the existing homes. So we also plan on adding a floor to our house in the coming years, but we're going to be doing so within the scope of the existing generous bylaws. And one thing that you just heard from Paul about the support letters, I just want to bring to your attention that I think the applicant is actually using sneaky and disingenuous tactics to garner support letters. So while they submitted 11 letters of support, as you see, only 2 of them are in the immediate context neighborhood of 55 and 57. But the neighbor that signed from 36 Martindale, she was actually asked to sign under false pretenses. So I know her, and her mother is actually the homeowner of that house. The applicant approached her at a childcare class and other moms and told them that the neighbor was actually trying to stop them from completing, quote, minor renovations. And so after the homeowners at 36 Colonial, or sorry, not Colonial, what was it, Martindale, learned about, you know, the scope of the changes, they wanted to remove their support, but the deadline for the written submissions had already passed. And so they couldn't make it here today as well. So anyways, I imagine that a lot of that would be the case for other neighbors who signed, you know, without knowing the full scope of the information. And so to me, that says a lot about the intentions of the applicant and their attitude toward the neighbors and the community. I think it's also important to note that Paul and Darlene, who are directly next to the proposed build, do not support it. And again, so there are 6 variances, obviously, that are being proposed here. But us in particular, we're really opposed to the variance being requested for the excessive FSI and wall heights. As we heard, much larger, sorry, baby is crying, much larger than allowed. Yes, in terms of the wall heights, we're talking about wall heights ranging from 7.92 meters to 8.25 meters. That's 1 meter taller than permitted of 7 meters. But those additional requested wall heights, they're actually 13 to 18% taller than what's allowed right now. So that might seem, you know, numerically minor, but it really, really does vary and differ from the context of the neighborhood. And you could see that based on the RA submission. So anyways, we find that to be pretty troubling because that will not only reduce natural light, but will also ruin neighbor privacy. So in closing, we really do welcome and support positive development in our neighborhood, but the variances requested to us are not minor. And the way the applicant has gone about garnering those letters of support, again, under those false pretenses, we find troubling as well. So thank you, committee. Thank you for your time. I'm rushing through because this baby is going to cry any moment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amelia, being with us. And thank you very much. You are supportive for the positive development in your neighborhood. For record, we have received your letter of objection. Actually, that was from you and Mr. Evan King. The committee have looked into that letter. Your concerns about FSI, about height of the building, which is duly mentioned in that letter too, has been noted, and we will try to get the answers from the speaker. Committee member, I think Amelia has left because her baby was crying, so you may not have an opportunity to ask questions from her. But maybe if you can ask the questions from the other speaker. The next speaker, we have Tanya. Good afternoon, Tanya.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you,
Okay.
Tanya, and you
Perfect.
have
Thank
5
you.
minutes to express your concerns or your input in the application. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. My name is Tanya Baksh, and I live at 214 Oak Ridge Drive. I am a director of the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association and a member of the Planning and Development Committee. We are an incorporated residents association which is registered and recognized by the City of Toronto. The Residents Association is working to preserve the unique nature of our neighborhoods and does not support the application to replace the dwelling at 57 Colonial Avenue. Can you please pull up page 7 of our RA letter of objection? We are strenuously opposed to the egregious variances being requested for excessive FSI and wall heights. This application is requesting a gross floor area of 360 meters squared. This is 29% or 81 meters squared larger than permitted. The maximum permitted GFA for this property is 279 meters squared or an FSI of 0.40. This excess being requested is almost equivalent to one of the abutting homes. In our opinion, this is not minor and not representative of the character of any homes in the immediate neighborhood. Can you please pull up page 4 of the RA letter of objection? Colonial Avenue consists of 61 homes between McCowan Road and Bellamy Road. Over 90% of the homes on Colonial Avenue are bungalows and 1.5-story homes. This is the prevailing character of this well-established neighborhood. Can you please pull up page 5 and 6 of the RA letter of objection? The average prevailing size of the neighboring homes on Colonial Avenue is 118.09 meters squared, ranging from 88 to 273 meters squared. At 360 meters squared, the proposed dwelling exceeds the average size of the homes in the neighboring homes by more than 3 times. This represents an overdevelopment of this site. Can you please pull up page 8 of the RA letter of objection? As you can see from the FSI and GFA charts on the screen, the proposed FSI of 0.52 with a GFA of 360 meters squared is well outside the current range of the homes on Colonial Avenue, including the recently built 2-story dwelling at 90 Colonial Avenue. The applicant also submitted some supporting material of recent minor variance approvals to indicate precedent for their request for their excessive FSI, but we are all very well aware that precedent does not play a part in your decision-making process for these minor variance applications. Please note that none of the properties listed are in the immediate context neighborhood and also neglected to include refusals received in the neighboring area. Examples: 66 Colonial, 234 Oak Ridge, 180 Phyllis Avenue, when it is demonstrated that the size of the proposed homes were not in keeping with the prevailing character of the immediate context neighborhood. Our RA has noticed a trend with applicants not to answer or give vague answers to the question on the application form. Why is it not possible to comply to the zoning bylaws? In this case, the applicant answer, they noted, see attached zoning notice. We see that in the letter from the owners in the supporting material uploaded on the AIC that they have a desire to build this large home to accommodate their extended family living together. While we truly appreciate their desire, we feel this does not answer the question as to why it is not possible to comply. It is a long-standing belief, a principle subscribed to by committees of adjustments, that if there is a negative impact and an alternative solution, approval should not be granted. Simply wanting relief from the existing bylaws does not satisfy the burden of proof that is borne by the applicant. The community believes that this house is not in keeping with the prevailing heights, massing, scale, and density of houses in our neighborhood, Official Plan Policy 4.1.5C. The proposal represents an excessively large floor print while negatively impacting the abutting neighbors with its massing and towering effect. This proposed new dwelling is distinctly out of character with the homes on Colonial Avenue. This application does not represent appropriate development of the site. In closing, we welcome and we support positive development in our neighborhood, but the requested variances in this application are not minor and not within the prevailing character of the neighborhood. We request the committee refuse this minor variance application. Thank you so much for providing the opportunity to address you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. You are right on time for 5 minutes of your presentation, and thank you very much, to be very precise.
Thank you.
Member of the committee, have you any questions from Tanya? I don't see there is any question. So thank you very much, Tanya, once again. We'll go back to the applicant, Nadeem. Nadeem, you heard the neighbors' comments, concerns, and questions. What I got from them, mostly the concerns is about the height of the building, the floor space, and also you heard that the neighbors consider this is a massive development, and perhaps this is the out of character of the streets, Colonial area, right? So these were the concerns raised into that. How would you respond to these concerns, Nadeem?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to request the staff to bring the site plan on the screen. I heard overdevelopment, density, no precedence, negative impact. So I wanted to walk the staff, to the committee members to these questions raised. The bylaw allows 50% of the lot area, and then they cap it to 279. I don't know why. What we are proposing is 0.52. That's the FSI we're looking. So the difference between 0.5 and 0.52 is very minimum. I wanted to show it to the committee members. Look at the site, look at the property, look at the front yard, look at the rear yard, look at the side yard, look at the separation between the existing houses, look at the separation between the rear yard. There is no overdevelopment. We're not asking for the front yard. We're not asking for the rear yard. As a matter of fact, we are providing more than what is required in the backyard, double perhaps. Same thing, I wanted to show it to the committee member. The side yard, it is 0.9. I can build my house at a 0.9 different distance from the property line. And I wanted to show it to the committee members. Look at that. It's 1.5, and it's 1.6. So we are actually leaving more than ample space, more than required space in terms of the development. There is no overdevelopment here. It's just, the numbers are being, referred in a different way. We have so many precedent. Yes, this area is going in redevelopment, and there are a lot of new applications, but committee has approved this sort of FSI in the past. Staff has reviewed this application, and I can assure you that as soon as we submit, community planning start calling and demand or request or require that the application should be amended. None of the community planner staff raised any concerns. So this is not an overdevelopment. Going to the height, everybody is referring to the height. There's no building height variance here. It is just because of the elevation feature. We can build a simple box and not to come for a variance for the wall height. But because the homeowner has a desire, this is the first time or maybe the only time in their lifetime they're going to build a house, and they're asking for the wall height. Coming to the side yard, if we were to put out like a fake eave, there will not be any variance. It is exactly the way we wanted to build, we are, presenting it to the committee members and requesting. Yes, it is another meter we're requesting, but look at 80% of the wall is 6.74. So I don't see this development, going forward, and any concern with the staff with respect to the drainage. We have ample drainage. I heard the concern about the trees. We have an arborist report. The arborist report has not raised any concerns. We will be submitting that arborist report to the Committee of Adjustment, to the Forestry Department. And if there are any concern by the staff, we will be happy to amend our application. So there is no negative impact on the rear yard. There's no negative impact in terms of the setback, the height, the distance, the grading, the parking to any of the neighbors. So I believe this application is minor. I request the committee to look at that way, that there is no extended, footprint. There is no building length. There is no height variance. The building is a two-story. With the basement, I heard a comment on the basement windows. This is technical. A window can be put into the joist, and the joist can be set back, and through the beam and the structural review, it can be built. So I request, there's no density issue. We're not proposing here two dwelling. We're just only proposing a one dwelling. So here I rest my case and request the committee to consider.
Thank you very much, Nadeem. That was your opinion. That was your elaboration. We heard both the sides, and definitely the committee members are also hearing the concerns of everybody, and we will decide on that. Before I go to the members, I have a question. Are you aware of the urban forestry condition number 2, Nadeem?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I acknowledge the conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yes, now I will take the matter to the committee members after hearing both the sides. Committee members, yes, you have any comment, questions, thoughts on that? Yes, Member Igor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have two questions for the applicant. The first one is, I'm just wondering if he's open to reducing his height or wall height is the first question. And my second question is, in regards to the large sort of tree canopy in the back, from some of the photos and street views that I've been able to see, it looks like it is quite a large tree canopy. And so I have a concern. I'm just wondering if the applicant can provide to us, I guess, clarification that that tree will not be removed, or everything will be done to retain it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is not our intention to remove any tree. I understand there is a front yard tree, and perhaps maybe we'll have to reduce the width of the driveway, and we are open to that. The rear yard tree, 1.6, I'm assuming it's going to be approximately a 6-meter tree protection zone. And if you just pay attention to our site plan, the deck is 3.5. So I can tell you there is going to be approximately 6-meter, setback from the house to the tree, and that tree will not be impacted. The deck is on the pillars, so we have no intention to remove any of the trees. Coming back to the wall height, honestly, these are incidental. Other than the front, which is not impacting anyone, it is not abutting anyone. The front yard, the front elevation wall height is more desirable by the client. The other one are incidental. We can build a plain building and get away with that, but is that how we wanted to start controlling, the homeowners or the designers? I leave it to the committee. If they suggest that those variances can be removed, side yard, we are happy to remove it. But yeah, that will put us into a different kind of a revision, So it's just a brick. There is nothing. If you look at most of the eve is 6.74 and required is 7. So it is not our intention to ask for variance, but it's just a design feature.
Thank you, Nadeem. Member Igor, are you okay with this? Or?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Igor. Yes, any other question from the members? to the speaker, to the applicant? Sorry. No? Okay. So at this point, we take the matter now into the committee. Thank you very much to the speakers and to the applicant for their input and their opinions. Now we are in the committee. Committee members, your thoughts, final thoughts on this before we go for the motion? Any input, any feedback on that? Yes, member Gary. Member Gary, you are, yeah, go ahead. We hear you.
I'm muted. Yes, well, I just remind myself of, certainly the official plan sets out policies asking us to respect and reinforce sort of the main character of the area. And as I've heard the evidence and seen and reviewed the submissions that are here, I think that the proposal is out of character for this particular site. So I just wanted to say that. Won't make a motion at this time, but my own call on this is that I wouldn't. I'm sorry. That I would have to refuse the variances that are being requested. That's my submission I wanted to make, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Member Gary, for your comments and input on that. Is there any other comments on input? Yes, please, Member Ann, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a bit conflicted on this one. We've had a number of applications on Colonel Avenue. We've had a number of applications in this area. A number of them we have refused as being overdevelopment. I'm going back to, as Gary has said, in the official plan, we're wanting to maintain the character of the area. The second thing is I want to look at why the zoning bylaw provisions cannot be met. There is a duty of the applicant to say, why can he not meet the existing zoning requirements? In this case, the applicant has been talking about side yards and backyards and rear yards. He meets all of those, but the house is too big and the house is too tall. Perhaps he needs to consider that the house should be reduced in size and the height reduced, because I don't see why this house has to be that big or that tall, other than the desire of the owner. And in terms of making it bigger and taller, we are causing concern in the community and setting a character of the community that is not appropriate to trying to maintain a harmonious community.
Yes, Member Agor, go ahead, please, and that will be the final comment on that before we go for the motion.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I was just going to say there are multiple properties on Martindale Road, 4 that I count from here that are quite sort of large new builds that have been built. I won't comment on people's rationale for building, why they need extra space. I think it's very subjective, people's lived experience of, for a variety of reasons, why someone wants space. But I will say, though, I think that I'm okay with variance 5 and 6, but I do think that if there was some movement on the height and walls, I think I would have been more in favor of the proposal. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, members of the committee, for your valuable contribution for looking into these 6 variances of this application which are before the committee. So now it is the time to have a motion on that. So may I have a motion, please? Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. All right, with respect to the variance applications for 57 Colonial Avenue. I move that committee refuse these variances that are sought today. Thank you.
May I have the second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. The motion is moved by Member Gary, second by Member N. All those in favor? Thank you very much. The motion is carried. The application pertaining to minor variances for 57 Colonial Avenue is not approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Said, for chairing that item for me. We're going to, just give me a moment. I'm going to sign in. Okay, so we are going to start with the next item, and that would be item number 29. So for item 29, this is 525 Markham Road. We do have a long list of speakers registered to speak. So I'm going to start with the planner for this application, Andrew Vrana. Andrew.
Through the chair, this is Andrew Vrana. As mentioned, I'm a planner at SHS Consulting, and I'm here today as a consultant representing the owner of 525 Markham Road, McGuaman Incorporated, for this minor variance application. I do have a presentation prepared, and the other presenters you noted are members of our project team, including the architect and owner, and they're here purely on the line to help answer any questions that might come up from any speakers or members of the committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. So, sure, please proceed with your presentation, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. If we could go to the next slide. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to touch upon, as this is a more complex application. A quick summary of what we're going to discuss today. Site history and existing site conditions that are unique on this property. An overview of the proposed development, and then, of course, a grouping of the requested variances and how they relate to the site and will help achieve this development and its construction. So currently there is a 9-story, 115-unit affordable rental apartment building with commercial retail spaces that front onto Markham Road. This property was purchased in 2019 by the current owner, with the intent to intensify an underutilized portion of the site at the south end. And this has evolved into the proposal you see before you today. 6 stories, 62 units, and intended as an affordable rental apartment building. This project is funded by the City of Toronto through the Open Door Affordable Housing Program, and has received a commitment from the federal government through ACE Rapid Housing Initiative. And it is noted by the city's housing secretariat that this project is critical for the city to meet its affordable housing goals. Next slide. So the current property was developed in 1991 and 1992 and received site-specific zoning, which is the subject of a lot of our requested variances. Prior to that, it actually served as a service parking lot for a neighboring property at 35 Confederation. And so some of the legacy City of Scarborough zoning exceptions that govern the site are actually tied to that and relate to a lot of our other requested variances. Next slide, please. So there are 4 objectives for the proposed development. Creating truly affordable housing, which is facilitated by the City of Toronto and federal government funding this project has received. Environmental responsibility, an improved streetscape along Markham Road for both future residents of the building as well as existing residents of the neighborhood, and a deep respect for neighbors inherent in the design that we have proposed. Next slide. So you can see on the site plan, colored in a brown, the proposed location of the infill development at the south end of the site. We really located it here to try and close that street wall along Markham Road to the south, and also preserve the existing landscaping and trees further south to the right on your image. So that's the proposed location. Part of the property actually is taken up by a surface parking structure, multi-level, 3 stories, and the proposed development actually overhangs part of that at the east side. Next. Here's a rendering in 3D from Markham Road and Stephenwood to the southwest. And you can really see how it's set back and provides a transition from the existing apartment building in gray to the north on the left in this image, going down to single detached dwellings on Stephenwood Road to the south and Confederation Drive behind the property to the east. Next slide. Here is the proposed main entrance, which is the subject of some of our other variances. The architecture team has really tried to add some interest here, both for residents and visitors, as well as pedestrian passing along Markham Road, trying to make it a little more interesting. So there's some interesting curvature and niches created there that are subject to some variances that we've requested. Next slide. So we require 19 minor variances, which sounds like a lot. Some of them have been broken out further beyond our zoning review for ease of decision by committee and I think digestion by the public. And they really address 5 specific issues. The existing site conditions, which includes a big change in grade between Markham Road to the west and Confederation Drive behind the property to the east. An excess of parking that is currently on site and which can be used to satisfy the proposed demand from this development and the existing apartments, intensifying and creating a more urban form of development along Markham Road, improving resident access to a bus stop on Markham Road, and then relief from those legacy site-specific zoning conditions. I recognize we're short on time, and there are 19 variances, so I'm going to leave discussion of the specific variances to any questions from yourself or any other speakers. But if we just go to the conclusion, you know, it really is our opinion that this is much needed new affordable housing in the neighborhood and, you know, in the borough of Scarborough in the city of Toronto. You know, the design really provides a transition to those neighbors, trying to maximize their protection of privacy and protection from shadow impacts. And it's our opinion that each of the variances is minor in nature and should be approved.
Thank you, Andrew, for the presentation. It was pretty explanatory and described the proposal in detail. I believe members are excited to talk about this and they have some questions and clarifications. So I'll start with the committee members. Committee members, any questions? Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm excited about this. I know we need affordable housing, and it's good that you're proposing a housing that for our Indigenous population. So this proposal has some good social benefits. I'm looking at the proposal, and there's got to be 500,000 pages of this proposal. I don't guarantee that I read all of them, but I did try to understand what was the main the components of it. My understanding is that there is an existing 9-story, 115-unit apartment building on the site. If I can, I'm going to ask this in a series of questions, and you'll see where I'm going. What is the intent of that apartment building?
Through the chair, the intent is to retain the apartment building and keep it affordable housing as it is today for existing residents. They will not be moved during construction, and our construction management plan and intent there is to really minimize disruption with them. We actually had an engagement meeting much earlier on in this project, a little over a year ago, Member Macaulay with residents, informing them of this, and we've been keeping them abreast as we progress through planning approvals with the city.
Okay, that is very good. I'm pleased that you have met with the residents of the community, with the residents of the apartment building. The apartment building, according to the literature and what you said, is 115 units. The proposal is for a 6-story building of 62 units. Adding 115 to 62, I get 177 units. That isn't what you're asking for. So I'm questioning why you're asking for 310 units when the proposal is 62 and you're keeping the existing 115.
If I may respond through the chair, Member Macaulay, this is quite simply one of the quirks of the site-specific zoning, which is a legacy from the city of Scarborough that is a bit tricky. It certainly took myself, a planner, a little while to wrap my head around. The challenge that we have and why the requested variance is not for 177 units is because there is a existing apartment building next door at 35 Confederation Drive, which I believe has 133 units, and for which the density provisions in the bylaw and site-specific exceptions are actually tied. And so when we ask for density on the site, we have to ask for density on both 35 Confederation and 525 Markham Road. And so that's where the increase to 310 units comes from. As you say, it is 177 units on 525 Markham Road.
Are you then, we're getting very technical here, and this is supposed to be a variance, which is simple and minor. But are you suggesting that you are having to rezone 35 Confederation Drive as part of this application?
That is a no. We consulted with members of community planning staff, and it is our understanding that we can ask for a variance specifically for 525 Markham Road, and that will increase the permitted maximum units on both properties, but only applies in this case to 525 Markham Road because of the proposal being put there. So we're not asking for more units that are being proposed through the additional 62 units. So there would be no scope for 35 Confederation Drive to add to their density on site with this proposal.
Okay, you've lost me. If you're not rezoning 35 Confederation Drive, why is the numbers so high? You've got an existing building and a proposed building on this site, and you're not rezoning any additional sites. I'm lost. Why have I got 310 units and not 177 units?
It's a quirk of the zoning examination process. Member Macaulay through the chair. This is what the zoning examiner put down. We are not doing a rezoning of 35 Confederation. It's simply due to the wording of the site-specific exemption from the old City of Scarborough bylaw.
Does the old City of Scarborough bylaw have a property that says that these two sites are connected, and therefore the density on both these sites has to be joined? I'm trying to understand why we're doing this.
Yeah, no, I understand your question. They have to be considered together.
They have to be.
The wording of the bylaw.
And I think that's where Andrew's trying to explain that it's a quirk of the old bylaw that both sites have to be taken in together. So, but at the end of the day, what's being proposed is a building with 62 units. And the rest, the regulation that is being varied relates to the density is including the adjacent parcel as well, which I'm assuming on one of the plans that I saw was Part A, correct? Part A was shown on one of the plans as being that's probably adding to the density.
Correct. Part A is 35 Confederation Drive. That has to be included in that density calculation. 525 Markham Road, which is the subject of this application, would be considered Part B.
Yeah. So
okay, so I have dealt with applications where the zoning goes over two properties and the density is spread across both properties. So that seems to be what you're telling me here, is that the density for this land includes 525 Markham Road and 35 Confederation Road.
That is correct.
We granted, yeah, and if we granted the 310 units, what is that impact on the Confederation Drive one? Does it have any impact on it?
Through the chair, they would not be able to add additional units onto their property beyond the number that is currently on site at 35 Confederation. 133 units without coming back for an additional variance or rezoning. But that I think is actually consistent with the situation today, whereby the maximum density permitted on 525 Markham and 35 Confederation is effectively shrink wrapped to the density that is on the properties today. So they would have to come back here to committee again for a request if they wanted to add additional density.
Yes, but for the purposes of this, but for the purposes of this application, though both those properties are being looked at together for density. So if you look at this plan, Part B shows the existing building, 9-story building, and then what's being proposed in dark sort of black as a black rectangle. And then Part A is being included for the calculations of density. So through this application, the density will, both the parcels will be compliant of the density.
Okay. Then one last question. In providing a reduction of parking, and certainly I'm supportive of reducing some of the parking requirements, is the proposed amendment, is that going to reduce the parking requirement for number 35 Confederation?
No, through the chair. So the current bylaw, the site-specific bylaws for 35 Confederation specify a minimum of 148 parking spaces for the residents of that building to be provided somewhere either on 35 Confederation or 525 Markham. And so the proposal would keep the number of parking spaces on both properties for 35 Confederation residents to that number of 148.
Okay, I'm going to think a bit more and let someone else ask some questions here.
Okay, thank you, Member Macaulay, and we're going to move to Member Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to continue further, a lot of points were cleared. I was having my concern about the increase in the intensity of use of the site, which we are still working out how these two buildings are taken combined together as far as the number of units is concerned. Andrew, I would like to ask the questions now coming towards the parking side. Beside the number of parking spots, which has been deficient or compromised, the bicycle parking is on the 3rd floor. So I was just wondering, what's the reason of having this bicycle parking on the 3rd floor? Because in the neighborhood, whatever the apartment buildings are there, I mean, if the bicycle parking is above the 2nd floor or 1st floor, it's creating a lot of problems. So what's your rationale on that?
Through the chair, there are actually 2 locations for the bicycle parking. So 20 long-term bicycle parking spaces are located on the ground floor of the development, accessible from Markham Road. And the remainder are accessible from the top of the parking structure which would give access to Confederation Drive. And so what the design team has sought to address by splitting up the parking, the long-term bicycle parking spaces there, is really to allow residents to choose, depending on where they commute to, where they take their bicycle parking spaces, a point of ingress or egress from the site. And this is really driven by a significant grade change between Markham Road, which is far lower to the west, and Confederation Drive, which is far higher to the east. Currently, the existing residential apartment building, that 9-story, 115-unit building that already exists on site, the principal access points for bicycle parking and automobile access is from Confederation Drive. So we're keeping some consistency by retaining some of those 26 long-term bicycle parking spaces at that level.
And Andrew, regarding the visitor parkings, do you agree with the recommendation of the transportation section where they say at least there should be 2 visitor parking there?
Through the chair, we do agree with it, and I recognize long cover memo addresses it. We would propose our proposal is to reserve 5 parking spaces for visitors of the new building, as well as 5 parking spaces for residents of the new building as well, exceeding the recommendation of transportation services.
So if the number is 5 parking, visitor parking, and is this going to be reflected in the variance then?
Unfortunately, no. The reasoning being the wording of the variance stems directly from the zoning review notice, which did not consider the conversion of parking spaces and allocation to the new building to be new parking spaces constructed. So because we're taking existing parking spaces and allocating them to residents of the new building, the zoning examiner did not consider it to be creating new parking spaces. And so we can't change the variance according to the building department.
But we can certainly consider that as a condition as recommended by transportation.
Through the chair, I don't think we would have an objection to that being a condition, the minimum allocation of visitor parking
Correct.
spaces in line with transportation services. That would be fine.
Perfect. Okay. Any further comments or questions?
Yeah, I've got yet another one here. It's the marrying of these 2 sites that is causing me some problems. And I must admit, I didn't read every agreement that you have been asked to enter into. So my question is, what is the agreement to tie this property on Markham Road with the property on Confederation? You're sharing density, you're sharing parking, you're sharing bicycle parking, but you're 2 separate properties still.
Through the chair, if I may clarify, we're not proposing to share the bicycle parking. So going back to the history of the site development, when these 2 properties were developed, 35 Confederation Drive, that neighboring apartment building, was developed first. At the time, and up until, I believe, 1991, when this property was developed at 525 Markham Road, 525 Markham Road served effectively as a surface parking lot for 35 Confederation. That's why the parking and density requirements for the 2 sites are tied together. I believe it is my understanding that concurrent with the development at 525 Markham Road that occurred in 1991, an agreement was made between the 2 property owners as well. That agreement is still in place. So the owners of 35 Confederation Drive lease long-term, on a long-term basis, parking from 525 Markham Road in the existing parking structure, and also contribute to maintenance for that. So as a result of the proposed variances that we have requested, The owner, Wigwaman Incorporated, of 525 Markham Road, is undergoing an update to that long-term agreement with 35 Confederation Drive that would reflect, the requested variances. And so that's currently in progress. If you have any further questions about that, the owner is on the line as well, and I know they'd be happy to address any additional detail you would need.
And one more question along this line. What is to stop 35 Confederation Drive from grabbing the 62 units being proposed on Markham Road?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question, Member Macaulay.
The 35 Confederation Drive and the Markham Road property.
Yeah, 5 to 5
are
Markham.
linked.
Right.
They are linked in terms of parking. I believe because we're being asked for 310 units, they are linked in terms of density. So my question is, I would like to approve the housing for the Indigenous community, but in that approval, what guarantee is there? And I'm really starting to question whether this should be a variance at all. But in that approval, what is to stop the owners of Confederation Boulevard from taking that additional density and building on their site?
So, Member Macaulay, there's an ongoing site plan application, right?
That
And
doesn't do anything.
why not? Why not? The site plan application is for this specific development at 525 Markham Road to build a 6-story building with 60 odd units in it. How can they start to take over? Like, this is a site-specific site plan application ongoing right now, which will be registered on title.
Yeah, he's got a site plan application. That's not a building permit. And given time, not this year, but in 2 years' time, maybe 3 years' time, maybe Confederation Boulevard property owner wants to have an increased density. And so my question here is, because we're approving the density for both these sites and tying the parking for both these sites, what is to make sure that the 62 dwelling units are in fact built on the site that we think we are approving?
I'm sorry, Member
through the
Macaulay,
chair-
I can't understand. I can't comprehend why we're going that direction. Like, why are we making that assumption? That could be said then for anything that we approve or happens. But anyways, I'm not going to delve too much into it, but I'm still struggling with your question, but I let the applicant address it.
Okay. What we're dealing with here is a transfer of density and a transfer of provisions.
It's not a transfer.
gotta-
It's not a transfer of density.
If I may
Yeah, please.
respond through the chair. So I understand your question, Member Macaulay, and I think in an abstract theoretical sense, it is absolutely possible. I think where we are today for this project is, as the chair mentioned, going through site plan application, to which we cannot proceed further without these requested variances. The project has received commitment of city and federal funding for this project to be built within probably that time frame that you're specifying. It is a rapid housing project, so within 2 years, optimistically, we would already be completed. In which case, at that point in time, 35 Confederation could not take that density. I would say, in addition to that, there are other zoning considerations for 35 Confederation, which would limit them just going and building additional units, including limitations on height and setback and so forth. So were those property owners, desirous of trying to somehow steal the density, they would still have to ask for variances or go through a rezoning process to get around those performance standards that limit their development through their existing zoning for the site. If that is not, I think, satisfactory to your concern, I think we've seen on other files and applications today I guess conditions tying the variances to the plans proposed to limit changes. And if that's a concern, I can't speak for the owner, but certainly would be a consideration to potentially, provide a condition limiting to, that those additional units be constructed on 525 Markham Road instead of, between the two properties somehow.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let some of the others ask some questions here.
Okay, Member Said, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It will be a short question. Mr. Andrew, from the discussion, what I'm getting is the 35 Confederation Drive is one of the major stakeholder, right, there for so many things over here. Now, I was looking at one of the letter with the owner, the MPI has written a letter. It's there with me, and I'm looking at that, which says that they have seen the proposal and they need more time to examine it, and they have requested the committee for deferral of the case. Is that the status as per today?
Respectfully, through the chair, it is no longer the status. I believe as of yesterday, they submitted a second letter to planning staff and the committee withdrawing their initial letter. I think because of timelines, it was not shared with members of committee. But if members of staff, planning staff can confirm that has been submitted and they have received, that would be great.
Actually, I don't think so. At least I
Member
have
Said,
not
Member
received
Said,
that.
before we proceed, are you talking about the property next door, like 446-1111 Davis Drive? Sorry, not that one. About the Monterey parking. Is that the one you're talking about? Okay, so we have the applicant, so we have the registered speaker for that property, who may be here today, but, so let's give him a chance to speak and then we can come back. Okay? All right. Anything else, committee? Member McKay.
Hi, Andrew. I had a question about the process. There are a lot of minor variances here, 19. When I read them through the first time, I asked myself, why isn't this a zoning bylaw amendment? But I won't ask you to answer that. You're a land use planner. I take it that it is your opinion that the 4 tests under the Planning Act are being met here. So I'd just like to hear you on that last aspect.
Sorry, Member McKay, staff was just giving me some background information, so I wasn't able to listen to your comment.
Well, that's fine. I just have been asking Andrew a little bit about the process, but I realize, of course, it's a minor variance application that we're considering here.
Okay, would Andrew like to respond to it?
Yes, it'd be great if you just wanted to address it briefly. That'd be fine.
Sure, Andrew?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Member McKay, I think there were a couple considerations with the decision to go through the minor variance process instead of through rezoning. And I think first and foremost, in discussion with community planning staff, as we first embarked on this process, was the consideration, the general principle, as well as I think, something spelled out in the Planning Act itself, which is that each variance should be considered, separately from other variances. And from that perspective, certainly each of the variances, it is my opinion, professionally and personally, that they meet and pass the 4 tests. They are in conformity and consistent with the intent of the official plan. They are consistent with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. They are minor in nature due to their impact on existing residents in the community, and that they are appropriate and desirable. I think another guiding consideration for us was what really, was the site-specific zoning that caused and actually triggered a lot of the requested variances. And in my experience, where there is zoning that is so tight that it really effectively limits any potential for future development of any kind, aside from the existing built form, it is intended to cause or trigger the owner to go to committee or go to city for relief, so that there is staff assessment of any proposal. And so thinking about some of those, an example, a 60-meter setback from Stephenwood Drive, that's approximately 3 times the 20-meter setback typical of an RA zone in the citywide 569/2013 bylaw. So, when we're looking at situations like that, to my mind, relief from those is definitely appropriate.
Thank you for that response. Thank you.
Thank you, Member McKay. All right. Member Macaulay, please.
I'm still having some problems as to why this is a minor variance and not a bylaw amendment. And we've dealt with other applications as a committee that have been convoluted with 17 variances, 19 variances, and we've questioned whether the number of variances is really a minor variance application. In this case, I'd like to ask Andrew, why did you decide not to go through a rezoning application for both 525 Markham Road and 325, or whatever it is, on Confederation, and basically clean up the properties in terms of zoning and get a new zoning bylaw for both properties that makes it clear and gives some assurance to the property owners that they have something that is applicable to them only?
Okay, so maybe here's where we can, I know, Andrew, you would like to respond, but here's, I think, in the interest of time, maybe we can ask our Deputy Secretary Treasurer for some guidance on this. And we also have the manager or principal planner today available to answer some questions to, in particular, your process questions. Why not a zoning amendment? Why variance? And also what kind of guarantees or assurances there are in place to make sure that this remains with the property that's before us today. So Colin, we'll start with you.
Through the chair, to answer Member Macaulay's earlier question, there is a site plan application that's currently under review, and through that site plan application is applicable law in terms of the site plan approval. That site plan approval, there will be an agreement registered on title. It'll tie it to all of the plans, so it'll be very clear where these additional units are going, which will be 520. If this is approved, it would be 525 Markham Road. I do believe that provides adequate protection. Because there is a separate process that the applicant does need to go through. This is not something that I don't think needs to be done, but if the committee chooses to approve it, they could add a condition to assign the additional units to the additional 626 units to 525 Markham Road only, that property. But I don't think that's necessary because we have a site plan application that's currently under review.
Thank you. And if you allow me, may I have, can I speak with either Rendrick Ashby or Rod Hines just to provide us with some background on the planning applications that are currently?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening, and through you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. When we're reviewing these variance applications, even if it's from a community planning point of view or from the Committee of Adjustment, it's not the number of variances that we deal with, right? So whether it's 3 variances or 17 variances, we're looking at the impact of those variances. Again, with what the planner said, we're looking at whether it is minor, whether it meets the intent purpose of the official plan, zoning bylaw, and of course, whether it's good planning. So the quantum of the variance is not a factor. Okay, so whether it's 3 or 17, it doesn't matter, right? Um, I asked to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And really, what I wanted to do was just reinforce to the committee the importance of this application, and that community planning is in full support of this application. It's adding to our affordable housing stock. And in our view, it's a good proposal, and it's something that we support fully.
Thank you, Ren. I've worked with you before, and I have some appreciation for your knowledge. I guess my concern still hasn't been fully addressed. I'm hoping that if by the time we get to making a decision, my concerns will be addressed. But you haven't said why you didn't go through a zoning bylaw amendment. And I'm going to suggest that maybe what you were looking for is a speedier approval. But instead of getting a speedier approval, you've got a messier proposal. And I'm just looking for something simple. Perhaps it wouldn't be quite as speedy, but it wouldn't be as convoluted as density transfers and property transfers and improving parking for different properties, all under a minor variance in order to build 62 units.
Well, through the chair, from one professional to another, I have to strongly disagree with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Sorry, Member Macaulay.
that's fine.
Yeah, we need to give others a chance, and as we move towards closure on this application as well. Member McKay, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, everyone agrees that this is a really good social project and much needed. So, you know, that doesn't relate to our comments about whether it might have gone zoning or another thing. No, it's, you know, it's a good project, and I think if we're satisfied on the minor variance test, that this is something that we should do and should approve. That's the only comment I have.
Okay, thank you. And I think just to reiterate the planner's comments that each variance has to be looked at it as its own merit and tested against the 4 tests and evaluated against the 4 tests would be my comment as well in making a decision or arriving at a decision on this application. We have to, regardless of what difference of opinion is, whether this is a zoning amendment or variance application, this is what's before us. We need to strictly evaluate this application, each variance against the 4 tests. Member Igor.
I just have a comment, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering though, are there any other speakers or?
Yes, we do. And this is why I was trying to close the loop with us so that I can proceed with, I know out of the 12 speakers here, most of them are representatives of this project, but I would like to speak with the representative on behalf of Monterey Park, Inc., the abutting property owner, and I would like to invite Randall. Okay, yeah, Rod Hines is the planner, right? City planner. So he would like to speak as well? Okay, but there's others as well, then if I'm giving a chance to everyone.
Madam
Okay.
Chairman, I'm simply here to assist Mr. Ashby in his commentary or any other questions I may be able to answer. I am not the planner involved in the site plan application, so I cannot speak to that.
Okay, perfect. So, Mr. Hines, thank you for that. If we need to come back to you and we have questions or any additional information, we'll get to you. Thank you. I would like to ask Randall Dickey to please come online and speak to us on behalf of Monterey Park.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Randall Dickey. I'm the authorized agent for Monterey Park, who is the owner of 35 Confederation. I'd like to make a brief presentation And I would like to start, I think, with my concluding statement, which is this morning, Monterey Park submitted a letter to the Committee of Adjustment staff withdrawing our request for deferral. I'm not sure if that was actually made it to the committee members' agenda because it was a late submission. But I did want to note that Monterey Park has withdrawn their request for deferral. And that original request for deferral dates back to the previous letter dated January the 5th. And with a little bit of context here, as I think the committee now understands, 525 Markham Road and 35 Confederation are joined at the hip in terms of zoning. With respect to density and parking, they are applied collectively to the two properties, and that is a remnant from the former Scarborough zoning bylaw. Nonetheless, Monterey Park understands that these variances are for 525 Markham Road. There is no intention or expectation that 35 Confederation will somehow benefit from this application before the committee today. Monterey Park's concerns revolved around, more specifically, two lease agreements. These are long-term lease agreements, 99-year agreements that are still registered on title. Monterey Park operates the commercial space at 525 Markham Road, and they also share that 3-story parking structure. And there's an agreement that deals with the use, the responsibilities, the maintenance, and insurance. And that was primarily Monterey Park's concern when we first got notice of this application early in the new year. In the last week since the notice was received, Monterey Park and Wigwaman have had a lot of conversations. I've talked with Mr. Varana, planner to planner. The lawyers have been in contact with each other, as well as the owner representatives for both Monterey and Wigwaman. These existing lease agreements do need to be formally finalized, and there's just not enough time to do that today. But notwithstanding that, there's been a lot of good discussion, and there is an agreement in principle between the two parties to resolve the issue and clarification with respect to the parking. So Monterey Park is removing their request for the deferral. And we're confident that both parties will continue to work in good faith and resolve our lease agreement. So in conclusion, Monterey Park, the owner of 35 Confederation, is withdrawing our request for deferral and withdrawing any letter of concern. Thank you, and I'll be pleased to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall, for your presentation. Any questions? Okay, I see Member Said. Go ahead, Member Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Randall Dickey. You know, you just give me a good relief by your concluding remarks that the deferral request, which was earlier made, I was looking at the date 5th of January, has been withdrawn. And that was our major concern in the very beginning, that how these two properties are going to coordinate and all that when this letter was there. But I'm glad you made it, and that's a good development. So that's really, and with that, I mean, withdrawal of that deferral request, I think everything is now clear to me. And the project, of course, it's a very good social project. It's needed by the society, by the city. Yeah, so I'm there to support that. Thank you very much for that statement.
Thank you, Member Said. Okay, thank you, Randall, for your time. We'll go back to Andrew for some comments, or if there's any final remarks from either committee members or Mike. Andrew. So, Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to say, you know, I guess in closing, I think this proposal represents good planning as a whole. I believe firmly, professionally, and personally that each of the requested variances is minor in nature, is appropriate and desirable, and is consistent with the official plan and zoning bylaw and their intent and purpose. And you know, I think going back to Member Macaulay's initial comments, this project is critical for the city to meet its affordable housing targets. In a city that is undergoing a housing crisis, in a province that is undergoing a housing crisis, Indigenous persons and households and persons with experiencing disabilities who are the target demographic of this development are chronically overrepresented in terms of individuals on wait lists for affordable housing in the city. And that's who this would serve, and it would go a long way towards addressing this crisis and those concerns for those people. And I think, you know, to address the concluding remarks from Member Macaulay, you know, certainly speed of approval was a consideration for embarking on the minor variance pathway, considering that this was, you know, that each of these requested variances meets the tests. And I think, you know, when I mentioned that this project had received federal funding through CMHC program, you know, that is intended as rapid housing, and there are timelines tied to that to try and get shovels in the ground so that we can get housing constructed. And so, you know, the approval and consideration of this committee towards that end would certainly go a long way, and is absolutely critical in meeting those timelines and getting this project built. We would have a lot of difficulty otherwise. And so unless there's any other questions, we would just like to conclude by thanking the members of the committee for their consideration today and all your great questions on what certainly is not the simplest property and set of variances to consider. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for those concluding remarks. I would like to now take the matter into committee. Committee members. Member Igor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank staff. I don't think it can be understated the work and time it takes to bring a development like this to fruition from all the parties and stakeholders that are involved. As members probably know, and the public, these projects are really difficult to see built, especially as it relates to affordable housing for Indigenous people and people with disabilities. So I just want to extend my personal appreciation to all those that worked on this. I think it's important to stress the expediency and timelines that are needed when it comes to projects like this. So I'm more than happy to move a motion for approval of this project, unless there's other comments by members.
Any other comments by members? Member Igor is ready to proceed. Member McKay, please go ahead.
I'll just say it's good to know as well that there's a site plan application process going on as well, which will further, you know, lay out just where things are going to be. So no, I'm ready to second any motion that Igor wants to make.
Thank you, Member McKay. Member Macaulay?
I'm going to jump on the bandwagon here because I think I asked most of the questions. I appreciate what the applicant and the planners are trying to do. It is complicated. I have my reservations about it, but I think we probably need to take a deep breath and jump into the pond and say, yes, proceed. And I hope to see a building permit within the next 2 years.
Thank you, Member Macaulay, for those comments. If there are no further comments, I'll go back to Member Igor, who had proposed to put forward a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll put forward a motion for approval of 525 Markham Road with conditions from Transportation Services. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
That is correct.
Okay, and those are the only conditions with Transportation Services, from Transportation Services.
Perfect, thank you. And may I have a seconder? Member McKay, please go ahead. Member McKay, please go
Member
ahead.
McKay, you are muted.
You're muted.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, late afternoon. I second that motion for approval. I think it's an excellent project. So let's send it on its way.
Thank you, Member McKay, for that. All in favor of this motion? Motion's carried and the application has been approved unanimously. Thank you, everyone who participated today. And last but not the least, last item on the agenda, item 31 is 88 North Bonington Avenue. Can we please have the applicant, Peter Jurusik? Hello, Peter, are you with us?
Yes, I am. How are you today? This evening, I guess.
Very well, thank you for asking. So the floor is yours. Do you want to present or do you want to go to the questions? How do you want to proceed?
I'll do a short presentation. This project on 88 North Bonington has been a project in the works here for some time now, going back and forth with the municipality, with the planning department. North Bonington is a road itself, an area itself that it's in transition. It's very dynamic. There's been a lot of changes recently. This property itself is located just north of Danforth Avenue. We are facing directly onto onto properties facing Danforth. So this property is facing a commercial automotive garage, which adjacent to that across the street begins semis. Semi-detached unit. This area is mixed with single-story wartime bungalows, 1.5-story houses, and semi-detached area. The entire area is zoned as RS zone. Now we do have several variances that we are asking for. Up to this time, I haven't heard anybody bring it up. I could have missed it or whatnot. I want to bring the attention to some of the variances. We are requiring lot frontage and lot area together with coverage, and in addition to some height variances. Like I mentioned, I didn't hear anybody bring this up, but as of November 30th, 2022, bylaw 1277-2022, as amended at the Land Tribunal, has now increased all heights in Scarborough from 9 meters to 10 meters. Now I know it's we've submitted this application November 30th, and so we are subject to the older 9-meter height. However, I just want to bring to the committee's attention, if this application was submitted December 1st, it would be under the current amended bylaw that has had a final order by TLAP, where now every project moving forward in this area, especially Scarborough, as you guys are aware, is 9 meters in height, have now been raised to 10 meters in height. So any application you're going to have seen come forward will now be 10 meters, have a maximum height of 10 meters. In addition, wall heights are maximum height minus 2.5. So any project moving forward could go up to 7.5 meters in wall heights as a standard. In light of that, when you look at our application, we are requesting a 9.8 meter height, where 9 meters was at that point the requirement, but any project moving forward is 10 meters. And we're falling right in between that transitional point. The same thing, our wall height is 8 meters for 93%. The new bylaw permits 7.5 meters for 70%. So we still require a variance there as a matter of right. But should this have been December 1st, we would have only been asking for 8 meters when 7.5 is permitted. So I'm looking at this and working with the planning department. We did ask for a higher coverage before, but working with the planning department, we've reduced it to an acceptable 42% coverage based on that. I want to point, we've met all our side yard, front yard, and rear yard requirements under the bylaw. And in light of this TLAB decision, we technically do meet the height requirements. And the only thing we're requesting here technically is for the lots to comply instead of 7.5 to 6 and 11, and the lot area. And in working with the planning department, we've reduced the house to comply with a lot of their concerns, and we put it towards the committee at this time, or to answer any questions should you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. It was certainly insightful to know that the new bylaw is in place and there's some new provisions in place, which I'm sure will, as panel members, will get a briefing on or some direction on that. That's going to be very interesting, actually. And with all the other changes that are happening in the province anyways, and all cumulatively, it'll be quite interesting to see. So we heard your application, your presentation. I would like to know if committee members have any questions. Member McCauley, please go ahead.
Okay, it's a long day and we've given a lot of thought to a lot of things. And Peter, I'm really glad that you brought this up just to make our day even happier. You have a consent application. I have no problems with your consent application. You had variance applications. I think you either had 6 or 7 variances that you were requesting. Are you now telling us that because of this tribunal and the changes to the zoning bylaw that unfortunately is new to us still, that you only need a variance for frontage and lot area? And all the rest of your variances are no longer necessary?
No, through you, Madam Chair. There's a part 14 of the new bylaw that's been issued to amend the zoning bylaw. Any minor variance application that was submitted before November 30th, which was the last date of appeal, is still subject to those heights. Any application for minor variance submitted after November 30th, the new amended provisions apply. So we still require them because we submitted this before. However, in light of what we're looking for here, I'm just saying there are variances here, but had I submitted them a little bit later, there would not have been there. But we do require it on a technicality because we are right at that transitional point before the bylaw now is going to be changed. So I know we are requesting it, but moving forward, you will not be seeing these variances. You'll be seeing height variances less and less now.
Okay, I understand. And obviously it's not worth your while to withdraw the variance application to come back with a revision.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member McCauley, for that. And staff, if you want to shed the light on the changes, just so that we're all on the same page.
Through the chair, I can confirm what the applicant has indicated. There were transition provisions that were implemented, and the applicant is correct in terms of you will likely be seeing less height variances. If it's under 10, you're not going to see them. It's 10 meters in the RS zone.
This is interesting because there was quite a few applications today that needed the variance for height. It's going to be fun. So November was a busy week for both the city and the province. Lots of things happening in November just before the holidays. Okay, well, thank you for that. If there are no further questions at this time, at least, let's move on in speaking with our residents, and then we'll come back. So let's go to our first neighbor, Khalid Mamoun. Are you with us, Khalid? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. So, yeah, my name is Khalid, and actually, I just registered to see how Committee of Adjustment works, and I log in like 2 o'clock or 2:30 basically, and it's still I was waiting for this application, and this is the last one. So thank you very much. I really enjoy everything. Most of the applications were accepted, and yeah. So I'm really happy to see your enthusiastic timing. Actually, I don't have to say anything, but I like the intensification that the proposed application is doing. So I'm really support of this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khalid. I'm glad you enjoyed our show this afternoon, but I'm sure you've learned a lot as well. It was quite an interesting day. We thoroughly enjoyed all the applications today, so that's good to know that, and appreciate your kind words. So moving on to the next resident, Michelle Holland.
Of Committee Adjustment. It's Michelle Holland,
Mhm.
and former city councilor for the area, so have many familiar faces, and just want to thank you for your public service and the amazing work that you're doing. I've also been on for many hours. I know this is the last one up, and it's been a long day for you. I did get the notices over the Christmas holidays, so it's been a bit, I would say a bit challenging, getting everything organized and, speaking to neighbors and whatnot. We have a lot of concern, obviously, with this application. Um, this application, the house is directly behind my house, and my neighbors to both sides of my house have also submitted their concerns as well to the C of A. And so I'll just start by saying that when this house is changed hands a few times, I know that the city planners were working diligently on trying to come up with a plan for the site. The issue is that when you look at this neighborhood, and this is the neighborhood I've lived in for actually 20 years now, and again, I represented for 8 years when I was here for city councilor from 2010 to 2018, and worked really hard with all the neighbors, all the different neighborhoods, and very closely with the C of A during those years. And just making sure, that the residents were heard and that we're staying in line with the four, initiative, like with the four identified uh, I'd say, the reasons why we're here today in looking at this is if it's a minor variance or if it's a major, and if it's in line with the characteristic of the neighborhood. So with this neighborhood, we've seen a lot of gentrification. We've got older wartime bungalows that are being regentrified into larger single family homes. This site does have an older wartime bungalow, but what the applicant is requesting is a semi-detached home on the site, which if you look at the list of variances, these are major variances. So I know that the applicant mentioned the height, but that is only one. These are major, major differences from the actual zoning bylaw. These are not minor. And if you look at the square footage and all the way around, whether you're looking at, the proposed lot area size, whether, you're looking at the height, you're looking at the square meters, every single aspect. Great, Eric, thank you so much. When you look at and run through all of these, this is a significant impact on this property, not only on the tree canopy, and, Igor, I know that you had mentioned, we've been fighting for the tree canopy in Scarborough for many, many years. And there's some beautiful pines that are on my neighbor's property that we're really concerned about. I do know that forestry is going to put a tree protection in, but we're still concerned, obviously, about the roots beneath. They are asking for tree removal, but it's really the size of it. If they could go back to planning, look at this again, look at a single family home. We're not so concerned about the height. If they want a few minor variances, that's not an issue. We're very supportive of new infill and amazing new families moving into the area. We're very supportive of that. So we're not against, someone doing something on this site. This is fantastic, and enhancing the characteristic of the neighborhood. But the problem when you go through all of these is that these are major variances. And I would just really emphasize, I don't, I'm sure, I know that this has been at the drawing board a long time, and I know that planning worked hard. So this is nothing against planning. I know that, at the end of the day, they've got, they want to bring something forward, but a semi-detached is just not going to work on this site. And in this neighborhood, when you look at Danforth Road, which the applicant had mentioned it's Danforth Avenue, which it's not, it's actually Danforth Road. So it's in the Birchmount Park neighborhood, which has been regentrifying and is a beautiful new neighborhood with single detached homes. So when you go, because I'm actually a runner, other than having major surgery on Monday. Uh, when I run my streets here, when I run all of our streets, these are all single family homes. And, they have amazing families in them. It's to the character of the neighborhood. And there are new larger homes coming in, replacing those old wartime bungalows, which are much, much smaller. And of course, you can imagine the 50s when, it just wasn't necessary to have a huge home. And that's fine.
Okay.
But looking at a semi-detached is just not, in character with the neighborhood. So thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate all the work that you do, and I please hope that you refuse this application based on these major variances.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle, for taking the time to speak with us. I just want to clarify one thing, or maybe it's not a clarification, just a comment and perhaps your thought. So yes, the application is for a severance to create a semi, but with your background and understanding, and then based on what the province is seeing today, shortage of housing, and not just shortage, but also diversity of housing options, and it all sorts of starts to relate with the attainability or affordability of housing and sort of diversity in neighborhoods. Do you not think that, this is probably a good time to think about providing housing options within a neighborhood, and so that it's not just singles, or it's not just towns, and it's not just apartments, but of sort of offer that diversity of housing within neighborhoods? Do you not think, in your opinion, and this is
It's a
maybe beyond this
great question.
application? Mm-hmm.
No, because I do agree with you, and we've always pushed for that on main arterial roads or
Great.
where you already have that right. But when you're getting into side streets and where you already have those single family homes, that's the issue. So you're really impacting those neighborhoods. So completely agree. And I've always pushed and supported, a lot of Indigenous homes in my community when I was here for 8 years, pushed many of those coming into Ward 35. But in this case, I think that it would be a really, really huge change to the neighborhood. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. I just wanted to get your thoughts, and I thought it was a good opportunity to get some understanding on that. So thank you very much for your response. I see your point. So I would like to proceed with, sorry, oh, Igor. Igor has a comment, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a question for Michelle, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Of course, please.
So I've just been looking through the street on Bonninghton Avenue and on North Woodrow Avenue. And in terms of your point around like the typology of different housing styles, there does seem to be, you're right, there is majority of sort of low rise bungalow type of houses, but there does seem to be semi-detached houses that I found. 87, 89 on North Woodrow, 91 on North Woodrow, 93 on North Woodrow, and then 118, and then 120 on Bonninghton Avenue. So I'm just curious about your thoughts of different sort of styles. I recognize that perhaps the lot that the applicant has put forth might be narrow, but I'm just wondering in general your thoughts on those points.
Michelle, are you with us?
Or if they're not there, then I'll just put that.
No, I'm here, Igor. Sorry.
No worries, all good.
I've just been having this coughing. Sorry.
All good, no worries.
Just hold on one sec.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yep. So, agree. There are some, again, fantastic semis, but they were built on much larger lots. That's the thing, right? Again, when you're looking at the size and the scale of this, it's just not minor variance. So I guess, for the committee to consider is, if it is to be a semi, it's, I guess, just, how to fit that within a minor variance. I guess that's the consideration, is that, again, we're not opposed to something coming in. And if it is a semi, But I just don't think that you can fit it really on this lot. When you look at those other ones, I know what you're talking about. They're more on the south side of Danforth Road in that neighborhood where there was many that came in. But they're on much larger lots that could accommodate that at the time because they're larger. They're not wartime bungalows. Those came in probably around the 70s and 80s. So it was when, families were growing and the size and the scale of the houses, they determined that. But in this case, I think that it's really going to be precedent setting in the sense of coming in and trying to, really impact the fabric and character of the neighborhood when you're going in and taking these lots of this size and trying to put in a semi. I think that, and it's been at the drawing board, so you can imagine that it would have been a concern with planning as well, just because it's just not minor variances.
Okay.
If there's a way that they can go back and get a semi in there without major variances, I don't know, and I leave that to the expert panel, planners to do that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for your service.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you, Igor, and thank you, Michelle, for your comments. I would like to proceed with the next neighbor or speaker who's registered to speak, and that would be Matthew Wrigglesworth. Is Matthew? Okay. Matthew, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Hi, so I'm just working remotely right now, so I hope I have good enough cell reception to speak with you today. I'd like to thank the committee members for taking the time to address this and listen to our concerns as neighbors in the community to this house. I am totally in line. I'd like to say I'm totally in line with Michelle Holland's opinions and views on the proposed development. And I'd like to echo a lot of those concerns that she has today. Agreeing with her, that does seem like many of these aspects are not minor variances, but are in fact major variances. The first concern that I'd actually like to specifically address is actually the height of the house, the proposed house. I know that the gentleman did mention that our zoning or the bylaw has changed to 10 meters, but he still is asking for requesting a variance on the sidewall height. And that does seem like it's going to be impacting the surrounding neighborhood in a way that it's going to be protruding up into everyone's backyards in an impositious manner, not consistent with the dynamic and feel of the neighborhood. And looking at the design plans, I actually don't see that there's necessity for this design. And when they can still maintain their overall layout without having to have the house so tall. The specific thing I'd like to actually address with that is the fact that they're actually proposing to build a 3-story house, but they haven't actually asked for a variance on that. And I'd actually like to point out why I'm saying that is because of the grade or the elevation of their lowest floor. That their lowest floor comes closer to grade than the middle floor. Pardon me while I check my notes on the height of that. Where their
So we have a plan
ground grade
also on the screen,
currently,
Michael. Matthew, if you want to refer to the plan that's on the screen.
trying to see if the numbers are there. So I've recorded down that their ground the grade of the ground is 1.98 meters, whereas the grade of the basement slab is where the basement slab is 154.38 meters versus the ground floor, or what they're calling the ground floor, which is the middle floor, is 157.87 meters. So the differential between the ground to basement is 1.98 versus ground. Sorry, apologies. The differential between the middle floor to grade is 1.98 and the grade to the lowest floor is 1.51. So again, that's approximately 2 meters versus 1.5 meters. So that doesn't seem consistent from my understanding of our bylaws, which specify that that I believe the City of Toronto defines the ground floor as the floor that is closest to grade. So I know that it does appear that the intention is the lowest floor is to be the basement, but for the basement to be the basement, it seems like it should be deeper into the ground, which would then, if they could achieve that, then that drops the overall height, which then I think starts getting this proposed design more in line with fitting into the neighborhood in a reasonable manner. There's other things I think I could speak to about the echoing what Michelle Holland was speaking about, the size of this house in terms of concern about fitting the lot, such as that he is asking for other variances, even though he has highlighted that he is meeting all the setback requirements, but he is asking for a maximization, like additional square footage coverage on the lot. And it does seem like the issue there is because of the size of this house fitting on too small of a lot, which I think goes directly against, which is why there's, goes directly against splitting the lot into 2 lots. I'd like to steer to another area of concern that I have, which is actually a very large one. So
Matthew,
my house, pardon me?
you've run out of your
Yes.
5 minutes, so I would recommend that you wrap up your comments, please.
Okay, I'll say very quickly, because my house backs, the back of my house backs onto the side of the house. I have the 2 large pines at the back of my property, and their tree declaration specifies that there will be no need to remove a tree, whereas the construction of this house will kill this tree, and I've not been communicated with in any way about how that will affect my tree or what will happen with that tree. So the construction, based off of the tree, the construction zone setbacks for the tree, the size of this tree, I believe they have to create a construction zone of 3 meters, which actually eats into the footprint of the house by approximately 2/3. So I don't understand actually how they're going to be able to construct this house if they're creating a tree protection zone around it. Alternative to that, they haven't actually indicated on the tree declaration that they want to take down the tree. And my concern is that the tree is actually on my property and nobody's come and spoken to me about the affecting the tree. The third thing was a water drainage thing.
So Matthew,
actually indicates. Sorry, that's all. I'll stop now. I apologize.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but that's sort of the rule. Drainage, I know you wanted to expand upon it, but drainage is something that we can't help you. What I tell all the clients who have concerns similar to yours is that drainage and grading are issues that are taken care of through the building permit process, and the rule is that there should be no adverse impact on your property as a result of this development occurring, okay? So I'm sure there will be, these things will be looked at through the building permit process. So I appreciate the time you took to speak with us and describe your concerns in detail. So I would like to go back to the applicant, Peter Jarusik, now. And Peter, I hope you took some good notes, and please respond to the concerns and comments that have been raised.
Yes, to speak to the comments from Mrs. Michelle Holland regarding this. The zoning bylaw that we're dealing with right now, as we know, has been developed by the entire city. They have deemed this area to be an RS zone, which is residential semi. So when as the committee is well aware, when developing a zoning bylaw, or anything in terms of the Planning Act, you're looking at what the desire is for the communities, how the planning department, together with the committees and the council, when they're approving it, on what they want to foresee as the future direction of it based on the official plan, then going to zoning. This area is zoned RS, permitting semis. So the understanding is that the semi-detached product is something that they'd like to move forward with in this, and there are some existing semis as well to note. The first four variances, they can almost be consolidated into two, because one talks about the whole width of the semis and then the individual semis width. So I know it's listed as two variances, but in essence they're the same. And then the second two are the overall area of the double lot and the individual lots. So when we look at these, when I look at even the adjacent property on the corner, our property here, the spaces, and I apologize, I said Danforth Avenue, they are correct, it's Danforth Road. That property even adjacent to us, which is in the same zone, the width of its property is the same width of what we're proposing here, is 6.1. And that was a discussion we had with planning department, is that there are indications in this in this neighborhood where there are some lots that are 6 meters wide or 6.1 or 6.2 meters wide below the 7.5 that the bylaw holistically proposed here. Height, I've already discussed height. I think we understand the height issues here. Now, if Eric could put up the existing survey, I know we were showing the site plan, but I'd like to show the existing survey, which will probably be the first page of the drawings here. Yes, that one there. In terms of the trees there, we are well aware of the trees that are there. And we have an existing garage there, which we have determined does have a 4-foot foundation wall around it. Our existing house will be actually set back further where that existing foundation wall is. And through discussions with through the builder himself, we're maintaining that existing wall that's below grade, which will protect the roots even more so. It's been something that we've talked to even with the forestry department as strategies when working with existing trees. That's why we haven't provided a application to remove his trees, because there's an existing foundation wall there that has, the trees have already developed with that concrete wall below grade. And because of that, we're building our house as a further setback of 3 feet from that property line. We can maintain that existing foundation below, which will in essence allow the root structure to be maintained as it is and continue developing in the same manner as it's been accustomed to with the foundation wall there. So that, I hope that eases any concerns about the pine trees, that the spruce trees there that are in his property there. So overall, this area is dynamic. It's changed. I believe a lot of comments been made. You know, I haven't even fully myself absorbed this new provincial policies and development and everything, but we do know that with these housing situation here, taking a single detached dwelling and developing it into 2 dwellings with the support of the planning department, I believe is a good change to this community. It is supported by in most aspects here. We've maintained our variance. We've maintained the respect of the setbacks as defined by the zoning. And besides the lot area and coverage right now, which we've brought down with the discussions with planning department, I believe this does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act.
Thank you, Peter. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Peter? Okay, I see none. All right, Peter, thank you very much for your comments. We'll take the matter into committee now. So committee members, the floor is yours. Any comments, thoughts, or are you ready with a recommendation or motion? Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
Thank you. I took a look at this area. It is an area of change. Because they is proposing semis, I looked to see whether there were ever any other semis in the area. And yes, there are. Just, I'm not going to make a great big long spiel. I've looked at the consent application and the conditions of development engineering. And I'm prepared to put forth a motion to support the consent application and the subject to conditions of development engineering and subject to forestry comments. I can do that. I can add to it approval of the variances, or if you wish, I will just deal with the consent application and then we can deal with the variances. It's up to you, Madam Chair.
You can deal with all the applications in one, and just sort of identify the conditions with consent and then leave the variances on their own.
I think we're tired and we want to get through this and get home. So
You-
I put forth a motion to approve the consent application for 88 North Bonington Avenue, B0078/21 SC, subject to the conditions of development engineering and subject to the conditions of the forestry, urban forestry. Secondly, I put forth a motion to approve consent application A0401/21
minor
SC.
variance application, Member Macaulay.
I am getting tired. Minor variance application, and the second minor variance application, A0404/21. I believe that the consent application is appropriate and meets all the conditions of the Planning Act for consent, and the variances are minor and appropriate in their application.
Thank you very much, Member Macaulay. May I have a seconder, please? Okay, Member McKay, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, yes, I'm prepared to second that approval with those conditions.
Thank you very much. May all in favor of this motion? And all opposed? Member Said opposes the motion. The motion's carried. The applications have been approved. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our agenda.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So that was the last item. Colin, do we have any other business?
Through the chair, just on the agenda, just for information, since the last hearing, in terms of TLAB, there has been one TLAB appeal that's been filed on 32 Markham Road. It was filed by the application was partially approved by the committee and it was appealed by the owner. Since the last hearing, there have been two TLAB decisions that have been issued. One on 5 Shelley's Court, a minor variance application, which was originally approved by committee and appealed by the neighbor. A settlement was reached between the neighbor and the owner. The appeal is allowed in part, and the amended variances are authorized subject to conditions. The second TLAB decision was for 7 Ferncroft Drive. It's a minor variance application. It was originally approved by committee and appealed by the neighbor. The appeal is denied. The variances are authorized subject to conditions.
Thank you for those updates. And there is no other business to discuss. We are ready for, Member McKay.
I'm just wondering if Colin, when he can, give us just a short note about that change in height and bylaw, et cetera, that Peter Jurczyk spoke of. So just when he can, it would be helpful just to clarify.
Through the chair, yes, of course.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for that, Member McKay. And if there is no other business, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'm happy to follow up and give you a motion to
All right.
adjourn this meeting.
And I second it, and all in favor, the meeting is adjourned, and I will see you all next month on February 16th. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Sorry.